I'd like to call to order a regular meeting of the Watchung Borough Board of Education on September 22nd, 2022 at 7 p.m. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that the advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung at which formal action may be taken. This meeting is being live streamed on the district website, where a recording of the meeting also will be posted. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda at points in the meeting provided for the public to address the board. Recording or photographing other than for private personal use requires the consent of parents/guardians whose children may be included in the image. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella. Mr. Buccarelli.
Here.
Mrs. Harvey.
Here.
Mr. Ingracia.
Here.
Mr. McDonald. Here. Mrs. Murad. Ms. Sedmani. And Mrs. Sharf.
Here.
For the record, there are 6 present. Mrs. Murad was here, but she wasn't by her mic, so just to make sure everyone knows she's here.
Thank you. Are there any board member comments? Okay. We're going to move on to superintendent's remarks.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Harvey. Good evening, everyone. We're very pleased to have a group of teachers here who kindly accepted my invitation to be recognized this evening. Some had family commitments and cannot be here, but I will acknowledge all of the folks. I want to begin by introducing our newest teachers. When I introduce you, would you please stand so everyone knows who you are? Okay, first at Valley View, we have Christina Markel. Christina is a special education teacher with 6 years of prior experience at a New Brunswick charter school. She has a STEM degree from TCNJ and a master's degree in special education. We're thrilled to have Christina here. She did a great job in the new teacher orientation, and she's off to a fast start. Thanks, Christina. Okay, next is Lauren Miller, our new science teacher at Valley View. Lauren comes to us from a school in South Jersey with 7 years of experience. She's a graduate of Rowan University with a double major in education and math and science. She was a big hit at back to school, and I could tell her room was filled, and she's off to a great start too. Thank you, Lauren. At Bayberry, we have Robin Wild. Robin is our 3rd grade teacher leave replacement. She graduated from Lehigh University and has a wide range of experience at independent schools in New Jersey and New York City. And she likewise is doing a great job early on in our 3rd grade classrooms. Robin, welcome. Now, we also have a new teacher who hasn't officially started yet, but I'd like to introduce her. Her name is Anastasia Irudayasamy. Anastasia will begin on November 1st. She's currently at a charter school in Perth Amboy. She'll be working primarily at Valley View, but also will be helping out as needed at Bayberry. We're very excited for her to start. She's a TCNJ graduate and has an MA, a master's degree. Anastasia, welcome. She also even showed up even before starting for the professional development days, and we very much appreciate that. Okay. Not able to be here tonight is Jennifer Principato. She's a special education teacher at Valley View. She has her master's degree in special ed and served as a leave replacement in 2 different capacities last year at Bayberry. She lives in Watchung, and some of the kids from Bayberry who are now 5th graders recognized her too in our school, and she's off to a terrific start. Next, I'd like to recognize and congratulate the teachers who earned tenure on the first day of this new school year. First is Lisette Eche. Lisette is our Spanish and ESL teacher at Bayberry. Many of you may recognize her. Also, Katie Lantier is here. Thank you for being here, Katie. Katie is our special education preschool disabilities teacher. Not in attendance is Ashley Tronalone, our Bayberry physical education teacher, and Katie Husted, our 5th grade teacher at Valley View. If we could also give them a round of applause, it'd be great. Okay, next I'd like to move to service recognition. So when I call your name, would you please come forward so I can give you a certificate that we prepared to commemorate this. First is Martha Riley with 10 years of service at Bayberry. I think everyone knows Martha. It's our music teacher. Next is Danielle Jenna Maresca. Danielle began as a special education teacher here at Valley View, but has been working in our child study team for the last 2.5 years and doing a great job, 15 years of service. Second grade teacher Diane Mahoney at Bayberry also completed 15 years. She is at her child's back to school night, so she won't be joining us, but we'll make sure we get the certificate to her. 25 years, Debbie Berlin Rosenson. Another valued member of our child study team. School social worker. Debbie, congratulations. And then we have Jen Marquis Dursey, first grade teacher who's not able to be here this evening. She also has 25 years of service. And in fact, I think Connie corrected this, and it's actually 26 years. So we have that for Jen, and we'll make sure she gets that. And last, like the others, Chrissy also had a family commitment. Chrissy Miller, kindergarten teacher, 25 years of service. And in the spirit of recognition, I also want to note several donations from the Watchung Educational Foundation on the agenda. We deeply appreciate the ongoing support and want to recognize West's generosity this evening. Next, I want to introduce our principals for their monthly reports. We'll begin with Principal Fichtner.
Hello, okay, there I am. Good evening, Denise Fichtner, a Bayberry principal. Bayberry students and staff are excited to be back at school. To recap some events from the summer, we had a successful summer program for students entering grades 1 through 4 at Bayberry during the month of July. Students had the opportunity to work closely with their teacher to reinforce skills in reading and math, while also having fun with hands-on activities in art, Spanish, and STEM. Our new staff orientation was held on August 24th and 25th. I want to extend a warm welcome to our new Bayberry staff member, Miss Robin Wild, third grade teacher. Yay. On our first day back on August 29th, we had a PTO welcome back breakfast. Thank you, PTO, for your generosity. After some coffee and donuts, Bayberry teachers were engaged in professional development on responsive classroom, a student-centered social and emotional learning approach to teaching and discipline. Then on August 31st, teachers were trained on the new 2022 Danielson Framework for Teaching, which will be used for reflection, observations, and collegial conversations. Our Meet the Teacher event was held on August 30th. It was a great opportunity for students to find their classroom and meet their teacher before their first day. We saw lots of smiling faces on our students, families, and teachers. Students in fourth grade completed the Start Strong assessment on September 14th, and all students are currently taking the first iReady diagnostic assessment. Our teachers will use these assessment results to determine students' readiness for learning and effectively plan for instruction to meet students' needs. In addition, after students complete the iReady assessment, they will be presented with a personalized learning path of targeted lessons and reinforcement games. We held our first all-school meeting on September 12th. We chanted our school cheer, went over school rules, and sang a song on being a learner. Students were encouraged to participate in Spirit Mondays and wear green and white to show their school spirit. Our third and fourth grade back to school night was held last night, and it was a huge success. It was so exciting to finally have an in-person back to school night, and our teachers enjoyed providing parents with grade level expectations, the scope of the curriculum, and the instructional program for the year. Our preschool to second grade back to school night is next Wednesday on September 28th, and the doors will open at 6:45. Life Touch pictures are next week as well, with pre-K to first going on Thursday, the 29th, and second through fourth will be on Friday, the 30th. And lastly, I would like to thank WEF for donating the car tags for all of our families to ensure a smooth parent pickup. Thank you and have a nice night.
Thanks, Mrs. Fickner. Mrs. Kidd is next, our Valley View principal.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the new school year. Our summer began with a little STEM excitement. Valley View had 2 teams compete and place in the final Teams Best in Nation, which was held in Dallas, Texas. Ryan Wen and Hansel Patel received 5th place in the multiple choice exam at the middle school level. Ariana Patel, Isha Gudwani, and Pearly Zhu placed 7th. Teams is an annual competition designed to help middle and high school students discover their STEM potential by applying their knowledge in practical, creative ways to solve real-world engineering challenges. Congratulations to our finalists. Like Bayberry, we also held our Summer Pursuit of Excellence program. This year, in addition to math and reading, we ended in a culminating activity where the students had to create an ancient civilization museum exhibit, which some of the exhibits are outside in the hallway if you want to take a look on your way out for those people who are here in person. As we fast forward to August, we welcomed our newest Valley View teachers at the new staff orientation. We are excited to have Lauren Miller, Christina Markle, and Jennifer Principato as our latest Valley View family members. And of course, we are looking forward to having Anastasia join us in a month or so. Our teachers returned to school on Monday, August 29th for the first of 3 in-service days. On the first day of professional development, our staff enjoyed a cafe breakfast generously provided by our PTO. Our days were packed with training and resources about our school and district goals of personalized learning, the updated teacher evaluation tool, mandatory safety training, and much more. On the final day of their summer break, our Valley View students were invited to grade level orientations to acclimate or reacclimate them to Valley View. Mrs. McLeod, peer leaders, and I led question and answer sessions and building tours. A big thank you again to all of our student volunteers for your assistance. Valley View students began the 22-23 school year on Thursday, September 1st. The entire staff was thrilled to welcome our students to the start of the new school year. The opening weeks of school contained lessons focusing on students' social emotional health, team building and communication activities, safety protocols, and class expectations. We opened the year with extended morning and afternoon drop-off and our super popular after-school intramural sports program. We hope these adjustments have helped families with the current busing situation. We held our first Mountaineer Monday schedule on Monday, September 12th. Mountaineer Monday is a special schedule that designates the first part of the day to lessons and activities focused on team building, school spirit, and social emotional health. Students are assigned to a small group led by the same teacher that they will stay with for their entire Valley View career. Our first lessons focused on empathy and what it means to be a Mountaineer. Mountaineer Mondays are scheduled a few times per month. The New Jersey State Assessment Start Strong began on Monday, September 12th, with all sixth grade students taking the science test. On Tuesday, September 13th, all students in grades 5 through 8 were given the language arts and mathematics Start Strong assessments. At Valley View, we believe the end of the academic day is halftime, so we were excited to hold our club fair on September 15th and get those clubs rolling. Students could learn about our club offerings from advisors or past club members. The list includes coding and robotics, student council, community outreach, photography, world cultures, yearbook, art, math, intramurals, and the environmental club. Families can visit our club website for more information. Thursday, September 15th was also the start of National Hispanic American Heritage Month. Staff and students share inspirational quotes and messages and some songs on the daily morning announcements. In Spanish classes, 7th and 8th graders are completing a research project about successful Hispanics who have contributed to or impacted our country. 6th graders have been learning colloquial greetings specific to different Hispanic countries. They are comparing the different ways people greet each other around the world. In art, all 6th grade students are creating alebrije sculptures. Alebrijes are imaginative animals that help act as spiritual guardians. Their history started in Oaxaca, a southern state in Mexico. Some students and families may recognize them from when they were featured in the Pixar movie Coco. Across content areas, classes are also discussing famous athletes, artists, and scholars, all of Hispanic heritage. Our already fall diagnostic assessment began this Monday and will run through the week. Makeups will be held next week, and after the results will be analyzed by the teachers and learning paths will be created for our students. Finally, we were delighted to welcome parents in person to our back to school nights. Student volunteers guided parents through the halls as they followed their child's class schedules. At each stop, teachers introduced themselves and a little about their courses. The 5th and 6th grade back to school night was held on Monday, September 19th, and the 7th and 8th grade back to school night was held on Tuesday, September 20th. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Kidd. Okay. Twice a year, we report on student safety and data. Student safety data. It's called the SSDS report. We do half the year at this point for the first half of the calendar year, and then we'll report in January or February, the second half of the calendar year. So for this, as you can see on the agenda for this period from January 1, 2022 to June 30, 2022, we reported 9 confirmed HIB incidents and 14 unconfirmed HIB incidents. We also had 5 incidents that fall under the category of violence, but please keep in mind the violence category is broadly construed. Incidents involving physical contact or altercations are reported under that category. And then last, we have the enrollment reports. The enrollment as of the first day of school was 662, which is 21 more students than we had at the end of June when it was at 641. And that will do it for this section of the agenda, Mrs. Harvey. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Committee reports, we're going to hear from Kevin. Can you please give that the Human Resources Committee report?
Yes, thanks, Dory. The Human Resources and Personnel Committee met this past Tuesday, September 20th at 4:30 p.m. Present were myself, Jen Scharf, Dory Harvey, and Mr. Alexis. First, we discussed the MOA and salary adjustments for non-affiliated staff. Mr. Alexis explained that this item has appeared on all the committee agendas for informational purposes, and there were no questions from the committee. Next, we discussed non-affiliated longevity. That had been frozen since 2019, and only staff members previously receiving longevity still receive it. The administration proposed making longevity available for all unaffiliated staff, and the committee was in favor of it. We're going to have a follow-up discussion at a future meeting. Next, we discussed the proposed tech restructure and a new job description to go along with that. The committee was in favor of this restructure, as we've discussed in the past. Part-time ESL, Mr. Alexis explained the plan to provide required ESL services by using a current staff member for additional assignments until November 1st, when we have a new staff member starting. Next, we discussed the Bayberry special education teacher that we are trying to hire. We're still actively pursuing new candidates here. Then we discussed the volunteer math tutor. Our longtime volunteer math tutor is being approved for this school year. That's on the agenda today, I believe. And then we had a brief discussion of the referendum and an update. Ms. Harvey explained that the NJDOE had reached out to her, and Mr. Alexis and Mr. Pepe were going to have a discussion with them. Finally, we went over potential board agenda items that will be on the agenda tonight. And that was all that we discussed. Thanks, Dory.
Thanks, Kevin. Rich, can you please give the Operations/Finance Committee report?
Yes. The Operations Finance Committee met on Wednesday, September 14th. Present was myself, Mr. Barbella, Mr. Ingracia, and Mr. McDonald, as well as Mr. Alexis and Mr. Pepe, and Tony Solomine, bond counsel from Wilentz, Goldman and Spitzer. Mr. Pepe, I understand that you have a transportation update, so I guess you can give that at the end of the report, because what we've discussed there is obviously less fresh. Okay. The committee discussed a referendum, expressed concerns that the explanatory statement included with the proposed draft bond questions for the referendum did not define the impact of each question separately. Committee wanted to ensure that it would be clear to voters that the questions were separate and that the first question could pass even if the second question did not. Mr. Solomine provided background on the legal purpose of the explanatory statement and shared additional language that could be added to the statement to clarify the separation of the two questions. The committee was in favor of adding the additional language. Mr. McDonald updated the committee on the discussion that had taken place during the previous day's ad hoc referendum committee, which you just will hear. Mr. Pepe then asked the committee on behalf of DRG Architects for input on the design for new display boards and pamphlets. The committee recommended shifting the focus from COVID to general health concerns with regard to indoor air quality, and to include the tax impact chart from Phoenix Advisors on any printed materials. The committee also decided to seek additional input from the ad hoc referendum committee. Excuse me. We then discussed potential board agenda items. There was no new business. And then we discussed the shared services agreement / Phillips Field lease matter. Mr. Alexis explained that the borough administrator will be seeking outside pricing proposals for certain Phillips Field maintenance projects in the absence of a response from Watchung Little League. Once an estimated cost is determined, the board and the borough will consider working out a cost sharing agreement to include the shared services agreement. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. I'll give the ad hoc referendum committee report. Oh, I'm sorry, Rich. I apologize. Go ahead.
So update on the transportation situation. Everyone's been waiting for this. What we've continued to do is work with the companies that we have access to, the Ed Services Commissions, all the bus companies, trying to find someone to take one route, two routes, all four of our empty routes. And we are getting a lot of we think we can help you at some point, and everything is contingent on people who are in the pipeline getting their CDL approved by the state. So as of this point in time, we still have not had anyone pick up any of the routes. So we are ready to move into the next phase of trying to come up with a different solution for this. I'm very frustrated about this. I'm sure parents are even more frustrated than I am. And it's a very unbelievable situation. We did speak with the county office. Our county office has been advocating on our behalf. And when I say our behalf, I don't mean Watchung. I mean every district in Somerset County in New Jersey. This is a national crisis. There are issues across the nation. New Jersey is particularly hit hard by the transportation issues. And a little piece of information I learned from our county office today, Somerset County, out of the 21 counties in New Jersey, has the second fewest number of bus companies in the county, which is making it even harder for the Somerset County districts. So these are what we're up against. We're still trying to find some solution. We're going to be working with the board and the operations committee on the possible next steps, which include looking at consolidating bus routes so that we can make better use of the three buses that we have in service right now. We're going to continue interviewing bus drivers. Every person who's applied in our AppleTrack system has been interviewed. We've only had one person apply in the past couple of months, and he did not accept our offer. We are going to continue to work with the bus companies and hope that at least one of them finds a bus driver that they can come and help us with. I just don't want to forget all the things. We're going to look at the feasibility of parent contracts, which I know a few parents have emailed us asking about that, about compensation, which is a thing that has happened places. The challenge with that is really a funding challenge. So I just want to address one thing so that the public understands. Because if I was a parent hearing that half of our buses aren't operating, my first thought would be like, what are you doing with all of that money? And there are people who've actually asked that question. Unfortunately, what has happened over the past couple of years is the prices of transportation have skyrocketed. Last year, we budgeted for about a 3% increase in transportation. And that was the year that our bus company at the time decided not to renew, and we had to go out to bid. Our bid came back with a 66% increase. We had budgeted for a 3% increase. So last year we had to scramble and figure out a way to fund that. We did it. This year, after that 66% increase, we felt we shouldn't have another big increase because it just happened, but we still budgeted a 5% increase, which is more than we typically budget for transportation. And everybody knows what happens. First, we got no bids. Then we were able to negotiate some routes, the three routes that we have. Two of the three routes are at 16% above what we paid last year. The third route is at 200% higher than last year. That is correct. You heard me. 3 times the cost of what we paid last year. So right now, the routes that we have, which is about half of what we need, are costing us about 3/4 of the budgeted amount that we have. So if we are successful at getting those other 3 routes covered, we are going to be at a deficit. We're going to, again, have to find money because we're assuming even that they come in at the 16%, not at the 200%. But if they come in at 16%, we're going to be over by about $200,000 on our budget. So since that's our goal, I'm being very careful about what we do with the funds that we have, because I want to make sure that if that becomes available, we have the funds to say, yes, give us that driver and that bus. And also, as I said, we're still interviewing if we can get anyone. If you know someone who has a CDL and is not working, first of all, I don't know how that's possible, but if you do, send them our way, because if we can find a bus driver, we'll borrow a bus and we'll get them on the road, and that'll be one more group of parents who are able to go back to a normal life and have their children transported to school. I think that's everything I want. Yeah, it's pretty much everything I have for right now. As I said, we're going to continue working with the operations committee. So the next meeting we'll have the alternative plan in place unless one of those or some of those drivers get their CDLs and we can put them on the road.
Thanks, Rich. I'll give the Ad Hoc Referendum Committee update. So we met on Tuesday, September 13th. Board members, Dory Harvey, myself, Kevin McDonald, Jen Sharp. Administration was George Alexis, Rich Pepe. School community groups, PTO, CPAG, WBEA was there, and WEF, and member Phyllis Chouette. So one of our topics was educating the public on the referendum. The committee engaged in a brainstorming session to identify strategies to educate the public about the referendum. Ideas considered included in-person meetings between the administration and various community groups and housing associations, board member representation at various school and community events, facility walkthroughs, mailers, website updates, yard signs, banners, email blasts, and media releases. Committee members also emphasized the importance of effectively communicating with the community during the last 2 weeks before the special election and disseminating printed materials to all residents. Just to get into a little bit more detail, during the committee, they separated, like I said, into 2 parts, mainly for Mr. Alexis and Mr. Pepe to reach out to individual groups to have presentations for them. So, for example, the Watchung PTO, the Crystal Ridge Apartments, council meetings, Brandywine, Giving Nest, so on and so forth. There was a long list that the committee came up with. And then some events for mainly board members to attend: Food Truck Fridays, the Harvest Festival, Trunk or Treat, Trick or Treating, also the Farmers Market. I do have an update about the Farmers Market. I was notified that we can't have a table there to disseminate information to community members that might attend by the mayor. I was told that they felt it was not necessarily the right venue. And then we did get into, like I said, print options, and then also any type of electronic messaging. The committee was very detailed and extensive in what they provided to the board and for the operations committee to consider. We had no new business. The committee selected 2 additional meeting dates on October 11th and November 15th. And the agenda for the October meeting will include discussions about the website and engaging with community groups. So that's about it for that one. Jen, can you please give the curriculum committee update?
Yes, Curriculum Committee met on September 15th at 4:30. Present were myself, Dory Harvey, Rita Sedvani was with us for a little bit, George Alexis, Karen Kidd, and Denise Fickner. The meeting concluded at 5:46 p.m. The principals shared their reflections of the first weeks of school. The teachers have been building relationships with their classes and trying out personalized learning strategies introduced through professional development. The personalized learning strategies are enhanced by the consultant who is periodically here on campus and through online resources. The staff has also been assisting with the high numbers at drop-off and dismissal, certainly at Bayberry and the police department over here at Valley View. The PE Health revised curriculum. The revised health curriculum was discussed and the principals explained the minor adjustments that were made. After the curriculum is approved and placed on Rubicon Atlas, information for parents will be placed on each website. The opt-out form also will be on each school website. Information has been provided for parents at the back-to-school nights. Mr. Alexis was also asked about the potential consequences if the curriculum is not approved by the board. The possible consequences include a state audit of the district, a state-required corrective action plan, reduction in state funding, CUSAC penalties, and the possibility of the CSA certificate placed in jeopardy, and board members and other school officials subject to ethics complaints. We also discussed the enrollment sizes, particularly over at Bayberry. With the recent enrollment of several fourth graders, Principal Fickner is working with the teachers to find creative ways to support them with these larger classes. We also discussed the NJ, SLA, and Start Strong. The committee was informed of the receipt of the NJ SLA test scores and the timeline for reporting to parents and the Board of Education. The administration plans to send the parents the scores after the September 22nd board meeting and to report to the board at the October meeting. A recent state broadcast addressed the timeline and reporting requirements. The district received the paper individualized state test scores on September 7th and 8th. The county office confirmed that the timeline runs from receipt of the paper copies. Our district therefore has until November 8th to report the results at the board meeting. The county also explained that the state expectation is for districts to use local data for comparative purposes, not pre-pandemic state test results. Mr. Alexis also gave an update on the FISERV enrichment program, on the timeline and topics that FISERV created. The tentative schedule runs from January 12th through March 30th. Classes will be once per week for 2 hours. Parents will be notified about the application timeline, which runs from October 13th through November 6th. Selections will be made by FISERV in mid-November, with a parent and student online orientation tentatively scheduled for November 29th. New business, a CUSAC committee will be formed as we prepare for the county's monitoring visit this winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
I just had a brief question. With I know there'll be discussion on the curriculum as we get further through the agenda, but where it says in the report about the minor adjustments that were made to the curriculum, that was after the presentation to the parents and community on September 12th. It was between that and the meeting time. Was it?
What exactly are you asking?
I'm
Because I
asking-
didn't receive any email from you, so I need to hear it clearly.
The revised health curriculum was discussed and the principals explained that the minor adjustments that were made. Could you just describe, I think they were deletions of material, is that?
No,
You feel
what we're
comfortable?
referring to
George
is,
will respond.
Yeah, no, I know what Mr. Ingrassia is referencing. It's that list of items. I believe the Valley View ones were deletions of certain, like of one supplementary resource, and the Bayberry actually added something to make sure the standard was indicated verbatim. And I believe they were all done. I mean, the principals can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they were all done after September 12th. But okay, I'm getting nods, yes.
So I guess my question is, would the supplemental sources that were removed or deleted from the curriculum, would they have appeared in the curriculum otherwise, or because they were supplemental, they would have not appeared in the actual curriculum document? If it was.
The way I understood it, they were listed in the curriculum document as a supplemental resource, but it was subsequently removed.
Okay. And I just had another question, or maybe just a comment that I would think that maybe we could have a moment at some time in the near future to just discuss the item that I saw in the update that Principal Fitchner is working with the teachers to find creative ways to support them with the atypically large class sizes. So I think if the full board could be brought into that discussion and maybe a presentation in the next public meeting, it would be helpful to the public to see how some of these class sizes have increased. From my own experience with the two of my children that did go to kindergarten at Bayberry, they, I think, had 14 or 15 students in their kindergarten class, and now we're at 21. And I see first grade, 3 classes with 21, and then fourth grade with 3 classes of 26. So I think for me to better understand as a board member and public to better understand, is it that there's empty classrooms or any available classroom space that's not being utilized for some other reason, for other needs that would help to reduce the class size? Or is it that there's no space and there's other reasons why we can't reduce? Even if we added one class to the fourth grade, that would bring it down just to the levels of these other classes of 19 or 20 students. So it's just something that I appreciate that we'll be working to find creative ways to support them, but I'd like to really try to see how we can support everyone's efforts with smaller class sizes. So I just wanted to make that comment since it was in that part of the update. Thank you.
Well, I'll definitely circle back with it through committee, and being a teacher, I appreciate small class sizes, but referring to the operations committee, I don't know that we have that in our budget at this time.
Or do we not have any space, even if we had it in our budget? Do we
No,
not
I
have
believe we
room?
have the
That's-
space.
Yeah, we have the space.
That's the kind of questions that came to mind when I saw it.
Okay, we'll move on to the policy committee minutes. Joe?
Sure. So the policy committee met on Monday, the 19th. Myself, Ms. Murad, and Mr. Alexis. We discussed for a second reading mandatory policy and regulations that were discussed at the last board meeting, which were minor, non-substantive mandatory changes under state regs. For this agenda, we have a new first reading, which is a policy and regulation on the emergency virtual or remote instruction program. Again, not very substantive, but some minor changes which are required under state regulation. And then lastly, we spoke about, which is on section 10 of the agenda under policy, discussion later on this evening about the potential for remote public commentary through some hybrid structure versus just strictly in person.
Okay, thanks, Joe. We'll move on to board liaison reports. Kevin, is there anything as the legislative liaison?
I don't have any updates today, Dory.
Okay, great, thanks. Jen, is there anything for Somerset County Ed Services Commission?
No, we didn't meet this month. I think next month.
Okay, Amber, is there anything for Somerset County School Boards Association?
There's no report. We'll be attending the October 20th meeting.
And for New Jersey School Boards, I just wanted to remind everyone of the annual workshop conferences that are coming up. So we'll go to community engagement. Is there anyone here from the PTO to give an update regarding the PTO?
Good evening. The PTO is excited to start our 2022-2023 school year. We had our first general membership meeting in August where we had our initial budget approved by the membership. We started the school year, as mentioned before, we had a breakfast for the teachers on their first day back. We also took time to decorate the entryways for both Bayberry and Valley Views with a lot of different encouraging signs and different streamers and balloons and a bunch of other stuff, so that when the kids came back on their first day, it was decorated and hopefully made them excited to come back to school that day. Food truck Fridays are back. We had our first food truck last Friday. We have food trucks running every Friday, including tomorrow through October 21st right now. Hopefully the weather holds out and we have great weather for that for the rest of the season. You can find the schedule for food trucks on our website, or if you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, we update that. We show you who's coming every Friday so you can see who's there. We're excited to start food sales again this year for both schools. We're going to start handing out food to the students starting next week on Tuesday. We have some of the same vendors that we've had for many years that everybody likes. We have a couple new vendors that we brought in. Hopefully we'll like them as well, test them out, see how it goes, see what the kids like. We always need more volunteers. So if anyone has any time to come in and hand out food to the kids, you can go on our website. There's a tab that says volunteer. Volunteer Bayberry, Volunteer Valley View, and you can sign up to volunteer. We have our first Dine to Donate scheduled with Buffalo Wild Wings on October 3rd. We're excited about that. We have Dine to Donate scheduled in November with Chipotle, and we have a Shop to Donate scheduled in December with Kendra Scott. We'll put more details on those as they come forward on the website and on Instagram and Facebook. In conjunction with the student council, we are hoping to plan a fall dance here at Valley View, hopefully one of the first weeks in November. So we're very excited about that. Hopefully we can get everything set up, and we're gonna have, I think the student council is gonna sell snacks here. We're gonna have a DJ. Hopefully it'll be a lot of fun for the kids. Our next general membership meeting is scheduled for next week, October 27th at 7:30. It's on Zoom. You can find the link on the website. And that's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Is there any update from WEF?
Hi, thanks for having us here tonight. WEF actually has a lot to report. Starting off the school year strong, we were very, very happy that we were able to secure some private donations for the district to a tune of almost $40,000 for Chromebooks, which we were very, very happy to be able to do. We recognize how difficult times have been and how you guys are working really hard to make things happen. So we are still working on another piece and hopefully get you some more money on that. But as of now, we're up to almost $39,000 on that. We did donate the car tags to help at Bayberry School, the little school buses that you see in everyone's windows. I'm always very happy when I see them in the cars personally, and just in case anyone hasn't paid attention, we have very nicely fastened stickers to the backs of the cards that tell you how you can donate to WEF. We have a Venmo on there, and you can also obviously link your Amazon Smiles. All of your money obviously goes back to the school, so we appreciate it. In addition, we were able to also support 3 grant requests that we received. One was in support of the STEM Lab for a 3-year coding subscription. We're supporting Battle of the Books for Trisha Keene. And also very exciting, we were able to help Miss Esposito with the Valley View Spring Musical Show Kit. We always love, or at least I personally love, when we approve WEF grants that benefit the whole school. There are plenty of times where we may do like a one-off trip or one-off item for particular teachers, which obviously we always support as well. But whenever there's an impact to the whole school, whether it's either, you know, each of the schools separately or together, it's always obviously great to see you know, the biggest impact possible for the amount of monies that we're donating. So we're very happy to do that. And then 2 huge events for us. Fall is very fun at WEF. We have Trunk or Treat. I know you all love it. You all come, you all support us, you help us. We raise so much money. It's a great fundraiser. And honestly, I personally think it's the best event in town because there's just all smiling Watchung people and no drama. So decorate your cars, donate your candy. We did Battle of Candy Wars last year, and it was ridiculously successful. Miss Pine raked it in, and there were just mountains of candy, which the kids loved getting when they were here. Parents, maybe not so much, but the kids loved it. And then for Valley View, we're doing Friendsgiving on November 18th, which for those who don't know, I guess this would be our 3rd year around. We had 2 years of a hiatus with COVID, but we serve lunch to the entire Valley View School, the students and the staff, and we're giving out pizza and snacks, and there's music playing and just happy kids all around, and that's what we love to see. So thanks for all you do, and hopefully we're helping along the way too.
Thank you. Is there any update from CPAG? Okay, I'm going to move on to comments from the public on agenda items. We welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during the meeting when the public is invited to speak. The first opportunity to comment on agenda items only is now. The second opportunity for public comment is towards the end of the meeting. Total time allotted for public comment is 30 minutes. Before you make your comment, please state your name and address. In the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement made by a participant to 3 minutes duration. Comments submitted to the board secretary prior to the meeting will be read first. Our public forums are not structured as a question and answer session, but rather are offered as opportunities to share your input with the board. In instances where the board feels a response is needed, the presiding officer or superintendent will address the comment. New Jersey statutes do not permit the board to discuss personnel or hiring in public session. Names of students should not be used. Members of the public should consider their comments in light of legal rights of those affected and identified in their comments, and be aware that they are personally legally responsible with potential liability for comments that they make to the board. The board shall not be held liable for comments made by members of the public. Are there any emails to the board? Okay.
Yes, I have. We received 5 comments via email this month. First comment from Anka Ferrant. Please do not approve the health middle school curriculum without providing parents and residents the opportunity to provide input. I don't know any resident or parent who is comfortable with the new sexual topics included in the updated curriculum. Most people are concerned how they're going to be taught to our youngest residents. Very few details have been shared with parents and community members about how this is being taught. If you expect this community to support these schools, please show us the courtesy of seeking our input and creating a curriculum that is in line with our aspirations, not just a presentation of standards in a PowerPoint presentation. Thank you. And our second comment is the exact same comment that was also submitted by Yi Cheng. So I'm not going to read it again, but it was the same comment. The third comment, this is from Pat Costello of Anderson Road. The current bus situation represents an outright failure to provide basic services to Watchung's tax-paying residents. For working parents, the situation forces them to spend hours of their workday on the transportation of their children when it should only take minutes, creating potential job insecurity for those parents. It also creates a needless, dangerous, and stressful environment for the children themselves and could well cause a child death or serious injury that is entirely preventable. We live in one of the wealthiest and highest taxed areas in the country. It is absurd that we have been unable to effectively manage how to transport Watchung's children to and from school. The fourth comment comes from Anne Kufamahalis. 1, current Watchung bus situation. I happen to be one of the residents who has not been afforded a bus as there isn't one available for our route. I've been inconvenienced the past 3 weeks since school start on having to coordinate pickup and drop off for both of my Bayberry students. I understand that there have been labor bus shortages across a number of districts. However, I would have expected this bus situation to have been sorted out by now. It would be silly to expect a refund in taxes for the past 3 weeks. However, at this point, I expect this to be resolved as ASAP. 2, teacher to student ratio. One of the reasons I moved here was for the education, which I expected to be top-notch with small classroom sizes, providing students a more personal educational experience. Given Watchung is a small town, I attended the first day of school to meet the teacher and was appalled on how my first grader is one of 25 children in a small classroom. And then my fourth grader is one of 26. These are classroom sizes that I would expect in urban locations where teachers and aides are plentiful. But in the Watchung school system that can't compete with urban school salaries, I would expect that these teachers are willing to work in this town because their classrooms are manageable as well as their workload. Instead, I'm expecting that we'll start to see shortcuts being taken, which means our students are affected. We need to start recruiting teachers, particularly for core classes, math, reading. Also, need to make sure we retain our teachers as so far as we have been happy with them. Sorry about that. Appreciate attention to this. And our fifth and final written comment comes from Lindsay Goodlow of Upper Drive. Excuse me. This comment is in support of the revised health and physical education curriculum. I am supportive of these standards and I urge all board members to vote yes. The proposed curriculum contains age-appropriate education about anatomy, sexual education, and pregnancy and STD prevention. In the age of the internet where inaccurate information or non-age appropriate adult content is readily accessible, It is vital that students receive this age-appropriate education from our talented and well-trained educators. All of the neighbors who I have spoken with are in support of this education. That some of our Board of Education will vote no is truly appalling. Is this real life or the Handmaid's Tale? A no vote is usurping the power of the State Board of Education to determine educational standards for our children and is an ethical violation of the New Jersey School Ethics Act, which every board member swore to uphold. A no vote would make Watchung out of compliance with New Jersey student learning standards. The State Department of Education recently said that districts that don't implement the changes to the sex and health education portion of the state's learning standards will be subject to disciplinary action, including loss of local control, state monitoring, and even loss of state aid. What is even more upsetting is that board member Murad is bringing national politics into Watchung by spouting lies and Fox News talking points on NJ 1015. We all know the Board of Education is a stepping stool to an aspirational future political career, since she has run unsuccessfully for council, county commissioner, and is currently running again for county commissioner. Perhaps our board members should be reviewing proposed curriculum standards and contemplating the very serious consequences of a no vote rather than posing for photo ops and radio interviews.
Thank you, Rich. So if there's any comments from the public on agenda items only, please come up and state your name and address.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Molly Hartman Lustig, and I reside at 140 Oak Ridge Lane. I just want to, before I get started, I'm going to be talking about agenda number D1, the curriculum. I just want to make a comment to those who complain about transparency. To me, transparency is not someone shoving the information in your face. It's making it available for you. So you just have to read it. So to everybody saying that I've not been provided anything, I don't have anything to review, no one wants to hear my input. It's right here. It's long, but you got to read it and you got to see what's in there. So when a lot of people think about sex ed, they often think about lessons about puberty and reproduction, but comprehensive sex education goes far beyond that. When I say comprehensive sex education, and when the New Jersey curriculum creators talk about comprehensive sexuality education, they mean age and developmentally appropriate, science-based and medically accurate information on a broad set of topics related to sexuality, including human development, relationships, personal skills, sexual behaviors, including abstinence, sexual health, and society and culture. Comprehensive sex education teaches students about healthy relationships, how to communicate consent, how to respect themselves and other people, and how to identify dangerous situations. Even though it might seem controversial, it's not. It's always in the best interest of young people. Sex education curriculum experts say that these comprehensive sex ed lessons should start as early as kindergarten. And there are a lot of ways to make them fun and age appropriate. For instance, using hula hoops to teach bodily autonomy. You give each student a hula hoop and then you use the hula hoop as an analogy for boundaries and talk about if someone's trying to come inside your hula hoop, they should ask for your permission to tickle you, to hug you, to kiss you, to give you, all those types of things. And if someone's touching you inside your boundary, that in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, it's okay to say no and talk to a trusted adult. For a kindergartner, this really comes down to identifying trusted adults and identifying what healthy relationships look like. And it's not just about sex or sexual relationships, it's about with your family members and your friends and those who you spend your time with. These are obviously going to look different for kindergartners and 5th and 6th graders and 12th graders. And that's why I believe that the curriculum is age appropriate and developmentally appropriate. One of the perhaps most important things for me is that there's an ample amount of evidence and literature review regarding the impact that comprehensive sex education has on academic performance for students. And I know that myself and many of the board members, including those who do not share my opinion about the curriculum, ran on campaigns that spoke to the increased academic performance of our schools. And I believe that the health education curricula, as it is presently drafted, would enhance the academic performance of our kids. Before I finish, I did just want to bring up an an interesting study that I read regarding the Netherlands. And of course, the Netherlands is not the US. But the Netherlands is a country that mandates primary schools to teach comprehensive sexuality education. And when it comes to teen sexual health, the Netherlands has some of the best outcomes in the world. Most teens report having a positive first sexual experience as opposed to most Americans reporting a negative one. 9 out of 10 teens report using contraceptives during their first sexual encounter. The Netherlands ranks among one of the countries with the lowest rates of teen pregnancy in the world and some of the lowest rates of HIV and STIs in the world. I would, if it's okay, like to pass out a study that I found very informative. It was actually out of Montclair State University and published in the Journal of Adolescent Health. And it really focused on 3 decades of research regarding the case for comprehensive sex education and did a full literature review. And I'm happy to share these. And finally, I did just want to go back to the actual curriculum. So I did a little word search. This is a fun way in my life when I'm looking at regulations and trying to interpret them for clients, getting to the answer really a lot quicker than going through all those pages. So I just wanted to go through a few words that I apologize if anybody finds these offensive. They're just anatomy. There's 0 references in this curriculum to the word penis. There are 3 references to the word vaginal, and it's in reference to fluids and or describing anatomy. There are 0 references to penetration. There are 405 references to health, 13 references to exercise, only 3 references to intercourse, 5 references to gay, and 3 references to condoms. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm new here. Lindsay Bateman. I'm on 40 Glen Eagle Drive. I have 2 kids at Bayberry, 1 in kindergarten and 1 in 2nd grade. 3 things, and I did not plan out the whole thing like that. So I'm just speaking off the cuff here. Hard act to follow. So bear with me. But just coming, this is my first Board of Ed meeting, and truly coming at you guys as just a concerned parent, and maybe hoping to pull at your heartstrings a little bit with my situation and where a number of people I've spoken to are coming from. Probably the easiest and least controversial one is the class sizes. I know a lot of us did come here to hopefully, have a little bit more of an intimate education for our kids in elementary school. So the fact that the class sizes are going up is quite tough. I spoke to my daughter's kindergarten teacher, who is amazing, and hats off to the principals for what they're doing. But it's tough on these teachers, man. Like, I was in that classroom to read to my daughter for 5 minutes, and I was overwhelmed with 21 kindergartners. So, again, I know a lot comes down to money. But I do think that, if we could really try, if we do have the space, if we could try to go about coming up with a solution to reduce those class sizes, I know a lot of parents would be really grateful. And I think a lot of kids would really benefit from that education-wise. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is on buses, because I know it's another big one. And I am also one of those parents who does not have a bus. We had one for 3 glorious days, and then it was taken away from us. I can't even imagine the toll it's taking on working parents, honestly. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I am wasting over 2 hours of my day getting my 2 kids to and from school. Not to mention that they're actually missing out on school, because in order to try to get through the pickup line, I used to be able to get my daughter, go to the pickup line, even get there a little early, get her to gymnastics in line. Now the pickup line is trying to pick up 175 something kids. It takes over an hour. If I don't pull out of school early, she misses all of gymnastics, which I've already signed up for and paid for because I didn't know I wasn't gonna have a bus this year. Again, the the argument can be made, well, gymnastics is not that important, but I just think that the strain that this is really putting on people and families is something that you are all well aware of, and I know you're working really hard at. And so I don't have any suggestions in terms of getting us buses sooner. I know you guys are on it. I trust that you're on it. I trust that you know what we're going through. But looking ahead in the future to avoid this scenario, just because I've only been in a busing scenario for 2 years now. And last year was also kind of a disaster in the beginning. The bus drivers didn't know the routes. It was a new bus company. They didn't know where they're going. And I'm looking at Warren, who has this contract with Dealman, and their kids are in 4th and 5th grade, and they've had the same bus driver all 4 years. And everyone's like very calm, and the bus drivers know all the routes. And like, why can't we do something like that, right? Like, I don't know if we find Dealman or if we find somebody else, but even if we have to pay more money, I think the best solution that a lot of parents would support is finding a company that's trustworthy, that we can rely on year after year after year. And I don't know if that's something you're already doing. I just didn't hear about that. But really trying to, take a lesson from this and move forward and try to make sure it doesn't happen. Again, if we could try to find a company to keep renewing with, that would be great. And again, I just don't know where that, if you want to fill me in, because there's information I'm missing, I would, that would be great. Lastly is on the sex ed and health curriculum. I am one of those parents who I think maybe missed the boat over the summer or until later in the year. So I just found out about this, that, sort of just brought to my attention at the informational meeting, which I attended here like 2 weeks ago. I hear that there are a lot of parents who are in favor of it. And I hear that there are a lot of parents who are against it. I think that as you guys who are representing our community, I would ask that you delay the vote until you get full input from as many parents as you can. And if the majority of parents come out and say, I am for this, then I would expect that that's where your vote would go. And if the majority of parents come out and say, I'm against this, then I would hope that you would support those parents, since that is what the majority of the community is feeling. I understand, I'm also a lawyer, so I understand all the ramifications and the threats of pulling funding and this, that, and the other thing. I also see a number of other communities that have, decided or opted to not obey what the state has said. A number of our surrounding communities at that. So I see it as not an absolute, and this has to be shoved down our throats, but more as let's really try to do what the community as a whole or as a majority wants. Because when we moved here, I did not think I would see a Watchung so divided. And it really makes me sad. But everything that seems to be coming out is like council people against council people and Board of Ed against Board of Ed. I want everyone to be able to work together and try to find common ground and try to find commonality. And honestly, that email attacking Amber, like really, like, why do we need to do this? Like, there is so much negativity out there right now. I just would love to see just some more support going on amongst everyone, parents and the Board of Ed included. And so my ask for tonight would be to at least delay the vote until full input can be given to you guys by all the parents, or as many parents as you can reach out to. And I would hope that the board would actually make a concerted effort, maybe with a poll, or another speaking event or another forum to reach out to get the input of a lot of the parents in the town, because I know there are a few very loud voices who are for it. But I also know there are a significant number of more quieter voices who are against it. And I would hope that those could maybe also be heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. As I always start out, thank you for your service. I know you guys don't hear that enough. Pete Martino, 15 Sunbright Road. We heard a couple of things about transparency and good things like that. I'm here to comment on the process of adopting that new curriculum. This is not about transparency. I agree, because it is sort of out there. This is not about opting in. It's not about opting out. This is not about state guidelines or personal preferences. This is all about the lack of collaboration. We're all part of a borough, a society, a community. We're all neighbors. We help and look out for each other for as long as I've been here. We are told if we see something, say something. Well, I see something, so I'm going to say something. As we all have the right to do as residents, neighbors, parents, and citizens of the greatest country on the face of this earth. I do not have any children in the system at this time. I had 4, and Mr. Alexis knows. Actually, we were neighbors for a long time too. Does that mean I have no say because my kids are not in the system anymore? I'm appalled by anyone who makes any statement that says I do not. As a resident or a parent of this great borough, you must always have the opportunity to speak. I was going to get into some other things. I'm just going to bypass this because you know what? I have the utmost respect for the administration. I have the utmost respect for our teachers, our principals. I think they care for our children, but just remember, we live here. Okay. We live here and our children live here. So I feel we have a little bit of more of a say. This board is elected to represent the citizens, all the citizens. That's a pretty powerful concept. You're not here to represent any special interest group, any private benefactor, not even the county, the state, or federal government. You're here to represent us and provide a sound and safe education environment for our children, but with our help too. Okay. I've been asked to provide no input in this health/sex education program. I've received no questionnaire, no outline, no explanation of how this administration will implement this program. As for educating our children, I do not claim to be an educator. Okay, but for 8 years, I stood in this room and I trained and educated our children on fire prevention and safety. I learned a lot in those years, carried me through to what I do today. I learned not to ask the Bayberry children questions. They easily get off topic, try to stop a 7-year-old from telling a story. Doesn't happen. Okay, we used animated videos. Valley View is a little bit different. The level went up. We could ask questions, stay on topic. We use action-based videos. All right, they loved the program. High school, even better. Got to a more of analytical and technical. They really understood, and it made our jobs a little bit easier. The point is our children mature and absorb information at different levels as they age. Our young adults can drive at 17. Do we give them the car keys at 6? Do we teach them how to drive? No. They do not have the cognitive, reaction, or problem-solving skills or the maturity. All I ask is for input. Let us see and understand the curriculum. Let us have the input and an opinion. I understand the opt-in, opt-out concept. I don't understand another part of it. How do we control the information amongst our children? What happens at recess, lunch, after school activities? Do we want our children educating each other? Classroom is only one small portion of our children's education and growth. I want to thank you for allowing me to address this body. I would urge this body to hold off on adopting any of this new sexual education curriculum until our community can have a little input, a little understanding, a little knowledge. Thank you for allowing me to speak freely. Freedom of speech is one of our most sacred God-given rights under the Constitution. No one should be ashamed, frightened, or disciplined for voicing their opinion. When it comes to our children, our community, our quality of life, which we're all responsible for. I read this. It says the New Jersey Department of Education believes that the strongest curriculum is one reflecting the input and expertise of the entire school community, including educators and families. Strong community partnerships and development will yield the healthiest learning environment. In developing curriculum and instructional materials for all content areas, the local education agencies are strongly encouraged to provide opportunities for meaningful engagement with the school community. And that's right off the New Jersey Department of Education website. So again, thank you. A little more collaboration. I think somebody even mentioned it. A little transparency is out there, but working together, this is the key. So I do appreciate the time. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good evening, Emily Jimenez, 50 Carrard Drive. Thank you so much for you guys giving us this opportunity to express our comments and concerns. My comment is around transportation. Initially, when we found out that there was going to be a bus shortage, there was a lot of information, high communication, something that as a parent, I really appreciated. The last 3 weeks, we have not heard anything in regard to transportation. My husband and I are full-time workers. We're back to work like we were before. This has put a lot of stress on us. It's frustrating. It's hard navigating carpools, pickups, after-school activities. I personally would like a little bit more transparency, a little bit more information, being a little bit more forthright, letting us know what is going on, so that way it can help alleviate some of the stresses that we have that accompany this bus shortage. I understand you're working really hard, very diligently, but this is something that I think could be avoided if we have a little bit more transparency. I also, Mr. Pepe, would like to ask you to share what those additional options that you're looking into are with the public. I think, again, that would help with our level of stress and uneasiness around not having buses. You know, we moved here a year ago for the many reasons that many of us shared tonight, predominantly for the school districts. And we've had a lovely experience with our teachers, both at Valley View and Bayberry. This is just not something that we were expecting. And I know it's not something you all were expecting either, but I think I have solutions. I'm happy to email you, Mr. Pepe, or whoever it is. I'm sure you probably looked into them, but you know, I just feel like more communication would be ideal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael, 6105 Crystal Ridge Drive. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm new in the area. I just wanted to make a comment concerning the classroom. The reason why I want to make this comment, I witnessed something recently, not from the school. My wife is a teacher, not in this school, but we spoke about something that was very important, and I just wanted to share concerning that. We mentioned about how much student was supposed to have in the classroom, right?
I noticed something. My wife spoke to me about something about when you increase the amount of student in the classroom and you have one teacher, it becomes a problem. After a while, the teacher would leave the classroom. There's a level of stress. My wife actually experienced that, not her leaving the job, but 2 teachers left the job because one teacher had about 30 students in the classroom and her head was busting all over the place. Imagine, you're in a classroom with 30 students. The reason I'm speaking like that, I encourage you to pay attention to numbers. I understand there's budgets, there's different things that needs to be taking place. I understand all that. But at the end of the day, we have to look at the teachers, the relationship between the teachers and the student. If we don't have any teachers, there's no school, there's no information. Who's gonna teach? We wanna make sure to pay attention to our teachers and how much burden we put on them. And that's what somebody else mentioned about if there's another classroom where we could extend so we could level it up, that would be much better. But if we fail to put more student into the classroom, wisdom will let me know this. I could see it that you're gonna find out you're not gonna find too much teachers to be there to handle the classroom. So I just want to make that statement. I'm pretty sure many of you seen that, but as you make decisions moving forward on how many students to put in, just keep that in mind about the teachers. I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Griffith, 95 Tuttle Road. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to us. I would like to say I wasn't planning to speak about class size, but I do agree that the classes are large. I do have a 4th grader at Bayberry. I have a 7th grader at Valley View, and I have a freshman at Watchung Hills. We've lived in town for a long time. I grew up in Watchung. I actually went to Bayberry, I went to Valley View, and I went to Watchung Hills, and the classes are large. My son in 4th grade has about 25 kids in his class, and that's gigantic to me for being in this town. I hope that you guys can take into consideration expanding a section for those classes that have larger numbers, especially that 4th grade is important to me in particular. I'd really like to see you guys think about that as they move to Valley View and lower those numbers. But my focus today, aside from that, was to talk about the curriculum, the sex ed curriculum. And I just jotted some notes down. They're informal. I did not do a ton of research like Molly did, and I don't have any handouts, but it is important to me. I'm a proponent of this curriculum. I think that it's extremely important to explore relevant contemporary topics in school. Our kids are curious learners by nature and will seek out answers to their natural questions however they can. Hopefully a trusted adult in or out of school is what we hope that they'll look for. But giving them an outlet to learn and discuss what's at the forefront of social and emotional learning is critical. If we don't provide them with that knowledge and the opportunity to ask and discuss, they're going to seek out that information otherwise from less desirable sources. They're talking to their friends anyway on the playground. They're talking to their peers. They're coming home on the bus and they're talking about these things regardless. And of course, they all have access to the internet. And that is the scariest thing, is that they're going to find this information regardless of whether they explore it in school with trusted adults. Providing them appropriate curricula from trusted teachers allows some control over the information reaching our children. And again, a safe place to discuss. If people think their children don't or won't have access to inaccurate and less controlled information via the internet, you are sorely mistaken. I have a 15-year-old, as I said, a 13-year-old, and a 9-year-old, and they are hearing this everywhere. It's our responsibility to control this information and to provide them with a safe space to communicate, to learn from trusted adults. Having clear instruction and that opportunity for open and honest dialogue in a safe environment is necessary. If you don't agree as a parent, that's fine. Opt out. I want my kids to have every opportunity to learn, to discuss, and to be comfortable with sharing and communicating about these sensitive topics. They're hearing about it, they're learning about it. This is the place that they should be given this opportunity to explore. I want my kids to learn and understand that their type of family structure is not the only type of family, and that they need to be accepting and kind to all different people and lifestyles. They hear it from me constantly, but hearing and learning from the teachers they know and love is just as, if not more, impactful. These guidelines and standards were created for a reason, because they're relative and our children are already exposed to them. Again, if we think this is the first and only time that they're hearing these topics, you are in denial of how elementary and middle school relationships and experiences work. By potentially denying them the chance to learn in school, you're essentially forcing them to explore these topics on their own, which can have really difficult consequences. If you're not happy with this, again, I implore you to opt out. That is your choice. But I don't have the choice to opt in. You're denying me the option of giving my children this experience. Why would my choices and why should my choices be affected or in jeopardy of being eliminated? That's not fair. So please consider adopting this curriculum. I think it's extremely, extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Kayla Bryant, 145 Hillcrest. So 3 things, trying to make the first 2 quick. Transportation. My daughter's one of the few students who has a bus, and I'm here to tell you the grass is not much greener on this side. I don't pretend to know the solution, but I cannot stress enough how unsustainable the current situation is. My daughter's on the draft route and regularly spends an hour on the bus to get home every day. She is 5 years old. She is picked up at 8:15 in the morning and has never been dropped off sooner than 4:15 in the afternoon. That is an 8+ hour day. That is as long as I work. She's 5. I'm in my 30s. Combining routes and expanding the commute is not an acceptable solution. Again, I don't pretend to know what it is, but to make the rides even longer is not the answer. She'd probably be really upset if I told you all, but she wet herself 3 times on the bus last week because she was on the bus for so long. I needed to email her teacher to make sure that she's reminded to go to, that the last thing she does before she leaves school is to go to the bathroom because she's on the bus for so long. So I know you all who have to deal with drop off aren't happy, but it's not much better over here. I have weird thing to bring up. There was a 6, I think, on the agenda. There was a lockdown drill at school, which it's an unfortunate necessity, obviously, of school these days. I guess I just want to say that I would have appreciated a heads up to the drill. I know we were notified after it. They talked about it in school a few days before the drill, which is great. But learning about the drill at dinner was just like a little jarring, like having her come home and say like, hey, we had a lockdown drill today. That was a lot. And just maybe in the future, at the beginning of the year, just to give a heads up of like, hey, this is going to be happening, just as a warning. So that's what we talk about a lot with our daughter, and just a pre versus a post notification. Lastly, curriculum, obviously a hot topic. I would like to give my full-throated support of the revised health curriculum. There are innumerable studies that support comprehensive sexual education and its positive impacts on children. I have yet to hear one of the parents who oppose this revised curriculum be specific in what it is they're opposed to. How's the board supposed to take the comments of the opposition seriously? And I don't mean seriously as in it's a joke. I just mean, how are you supposed to genuinely acknowledge it and make any changes if you don't know what these folks want changed? What lessons do you in opposition intend to opt your children out of? the inability of these parents to verbalize what part of the sexual education that they disagree with is exactly why comprehensive sexual education is necessary. How does it look when my 5-year-old knows her body so well and she knows all of the parts and the correct medical names and terminology? How does it look when my 5-year-old can say vulva, but an adult can't? Not to mention the middle school curriculum has been the same for at least 5 years. There is virtually no change to the curriculum. And that's really where I assume some of the opposition comes from with the older kids, the 5th, 8th grade, but none of it's different. So if it was fine 5 years ago, what's the problem now?
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to, oh, I'm sorry, Phyllis.
Hi, Phyllis Jewett. Where do I live? Elsinore Drive. All right, I understand what they're talking about. I really do. The only problem is that a lot of parents don't know what's in our curriculum. They just don't know what's there. So they're concerned that they would like to have some of this information perhaps taught at home and not at school by people they just don't know. They know they're their teachers. They love their teachers. Kids love their teachers. I was a teacher. I love the kids. But I just think there should be some kind of sharing that they know and they understand what's in this curriculum and present it to the people. Some people just don't know where to find it. They don't know what it's about, and they would like to know about it. That's what the problem is. There's no sharing between what the curriculum actually says and the people in the community. You're probably wondering, what am I doing up here? I don't have kids in school anymore, but I care about the children. I care about the parents, and I care about everybody who's in Watchung. These children have the right for their parents to actually see what's in this curriculum, and I don't believe they do. And that's where I think you should hold up for a while and go through this, get some information out to the parents, stop some of the angst that I see that they feel. There are very vocal people here. I know who they are. I remember what they were like in school, and I'm glad they're here. But there are some who are very quiet about it. They don't actually know what to say, or they have the time to come here. So I feel like I'm going to speak for those. Try to get that information to them, make it fair, make it presentable so they feel like they have some input, because they don't feel this way now. And that's the majority. That's not just who's speaking here tonight, because I've spoken to a lot of people. Some of them have very young children. Some have children already in the high school. Some are grandparents. These are the ones who feel like they just had no input on this curriculum, and it should be shared with the parents before it's presented to the town. So thanks.
Thank you. Is anybody else planning on getting up? Yeah. After they're done, then you can come back.
Christopher Stanton, 5 Glenview Drive. I wasn't inspired to get up until somebody else wanted a second chance, so I figured I'll take my couple of minutes here. My daughter goes to school here, and the bus situation is just an absolute mess. Just the fact that we got to this point really leads to poor planning. That's something that we count on the board to do, to really have the foresight to see that things happen, and to see that the plan is right now that we don't really have a plan other than hope is really discouraging. There's got to be more than hope. Well, we hope this will happen. We hope this will happen. Hope is really a weak strategy. So that's my comment on the bus. As far as the curriculum, there's a lot of people that have the curriculum, review the curriculum. It's not only the curriculum, it's the way that the curriculum is presented by the individual teacher, which is something that's not mentioned at all here. So you can have 2 teachers with the same exact curriculum, that the message gets presented different ways. Things that one teacher may present would be different than another teacher. And it's my responsibility to my children to cover this issue with them, not to have a teacher. If my daughter or my children have a question, I'll provide the answers. My wife will provide the answers. We have an environment in our house that allows them to have those conversations with us. I don't need a third party, a teacher that's going to put their own spin on it, or maybe discuss issues with my children that I may be against religiously, personally, whatever the situation is. That's my decision as a parent. That decision is not in the hands of education. That's my decision and my right as a parent. So you can talk about, well, read the curriculum, you'll get it. Great, that's paper. What's going to happen in the classroom? How is it going to be presented by that individual teacher? That's something that's not discussed. And that's not something that can get regulated until after it happens. So I urge the board, again, hold off on making any vote and decision until you get the full input. And when other people hear the noise of some and the quietness of others, other people, I'm sure, will also stand up and have their voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Scott Kaufman, 55 Glenville Drive. My comment is more of a question. The way I understand our school transportation is that we're refunded by, or we reimbursed by the state of New Jersey. That is correct, I believe. For transportation is based on the calculation of the number of students and whether they're special ed or general ed, and the state of New Jersey reimburses districts for transportation. Is that how our transportation funding?
No, we don't get a reimbursement. There is a calculation that's part of the state application for state school aid that includes transportation as one of the factors in how they come up with the total amount. So there is, it does have some impact on state funding.
So is it based on a head count of students who are actually being transported by the district, or is it based on the number of students that are actually eligible based on the state guidelines?
Eligible.
Okay, because my concern was if we have students that are eligible but yet not receiving services for transportation, that might affect our funding from the state, which then would cause us to receive less funding or less money, so to say, that might cause a tax impact. So if it's based on what you said, the number of eligible students, there shouldn't be any impact.
No. So in theory, yes, it could. However, the state is fully aware of the situation.
Okay.
The county office has been lobbying for us. The state has been starting to listen finally because some parents have called Trenton.
Okay.
All of a sudden, Trenton's aware that there's a problem they didn't know existed. So no, we're not going to lose funding based on what's happening, whatever direction we end up going for the rest of this year. However, the answer to your question about there is a portion of state funding that is calculated based on the eligible students eligible for busing. And currently we bus the vast majority of our students, and more than 50% of the students who currently are assigned to bus are not actually eligible for bus based on the state guidelines.
Okay. So obviously
if you could
yeah.
just keep it to comments, because it's not necessarily a question. And
I
answer
totally,
session.
I understand. I appreciate it. I just wanted to clarify, because if it's going to affect us and our taxes and our state funding, then I think it's even more of a reason for us to be on the ball and find us a solution to the problem.
Thank you.
All right, I'll be quick. I'm loud. I've always been loud. I was loud in elementary school. I'm loud as an adult. I'm loud as a parent. That's who I am. Probably because I got good sex education, so I feel good about myself. Okay, I don't want a car mechanic who has never driven a car fixing my car. Nor do I want that car mechanic listening to my input about how to fix that car. Nor do I want to see the plans or the steps that car mechanic takes to fix my car. I want to know what the problem is. I want to know generally how much it's going to cost to fix it, and the steps that we need to take and how long it is going to be until I get my car back. Just like Pete said, we go to him for fire safety. We go to him for public health, safety, because those are the things that he has experience in. So when we're talking about curriculum, when we're talking about educators putting together lesson plans to meet the state curriculum, no offense to everybody, I don't want a bunch of random parents influencing and commenting on that curriculum. I want the educators. I want the people like the New Jersey researchers at Montclair State, to be commenting on what's appropriate for age appropriate development. Nicole Griffith said it really the best, and she sort of said it already. But the reality is that our children are accessing this information at a rapid speed. Porn, the internet, they are learning in ways that most parents would not be on board with, including myself. And so for me, it's about the controls that we put in place, and the speed that that information can be disseminated and digested requires us as parents, as educators, to counter that misinformation and to have healthy discussions with our children and provide frameworks through which to evaluate that information. It's about building a foundation for a younger student in our educational system so that when they do encounter sexual situations, which again, you're in denial if you don't think your kids are going to encounter sex, when they get to that point, they will be able to safely navigate those experiences. That doesn't mean teaching kindergartners about anal sex or teaching them how to put a condom on a banana. That would be totally inappropriate. And like Pete suggested, would lead to a lot of really ridiculous questions from kindergartners. Whether we want to admit it or not, our kids are going to encounter sex, and we need this type of education. Again, I just have to comment on the transparency. I have a full-time job. I have 2 kids who are in school. I got 2 dogs. I got a husband who pisses me off a lot of the time. I took the time to find this online. It was right on the website. There was a link there. I mean, maybe you have to dig a little bit, but I found it, and I spent a little bit of time each night on my own personal time really reading through it. And so, you know, it's pretty clear. You can, I mean, it starts on page 4. It's pretty good. It just goes through each of the topics. And by the end of grade 2, by the end of grade 5, by the end of grade 8, by the end of grade 12. And I understand that the lesson plans themselves are not here, but I also have enough faith in the educators in this community, a community that I went to school in, to have appropriate lesson plans to effectuate these goals and teach my children.
Thank you.
Again, I would urge the board to hold off on having any vote till you get full community input. Just because somebody has a certification or a license doesn't mean that they're the best person to be able to do that. Okay. So again, please, I urge you till you get full input. And my mechanic who fixes my car, he doesn't know that I also fix Ferrari. So sometimes he would like to have my input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Harvey, may I just make a comment about some of the, is everyone done? Oh, I'm sorry. Or, sure.
I find myself in like a middle ground here. I don't disagree with this side, and I don't disagree with this side. I think where I'm coming from is, if whatever my personal feelings are for or against, I'm on the losing side, I will accept that. I am just asking the board to reach out to parents and find out where this community falls. Do we fall on the for side? Do we fall on the against side? Where, because you are representing every single person here. There are lawyers here who can definitely read everything. I'm one of them. There are parents who have English as a second language in this community. There are parents who just truly can't find the time, you know, because of financial situations or elsewise. I am not one of those people, but I ask this board to reach out to as many parents as they can, just to find out where the community falls on this, so that you guys can truly understand where the majority of the parents are. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to action items. Oh, I'm sorry, Joe.
No, it's okay.
Did you- do you
I just
want
wanted
to-
to make one comment, and I promise I'm not going to talk about the curriculum right now. I just wanted to talk about the bus situation, because, but believe me, I completely understand the frustration. I have children in the district where myself and my wife are working parents. We don't have a bus either. So I take my child to school and pick her up as well. Just to be clear, I just want to make sure people understand. It's not a bus issue. We have buses, they're buses. It's a driver issue. And the drivers come from a very limited set of vendors that have the drivers with the licenses. During COVID, a lot of bus drivers retired. They no longer had jobs, didn't want the compensation, did not want the erratic hours. Now, we're in a situation where it's a supply-demand issue. You still have the same students, if not more, just no drivers. The drivers have special licenses. It's not a situation about, let's go get a company, let's go Uber, no such thing. They have to be appropriately licensed. Of course, we would all want that. And we have a select grouping of vendors that are capable of providing it. We went through the whole process for bidding these vendors, and they had no interest, even after increasing the money exponentially. So it's not even a money problem at this time. It's really a supply problem. And now what the companies are doing are trying to, as quickly as possible, get drivers in and licensed to be able to soak up the demand. So it's completely frustrating. I realize at times the communication may not have been crisp or should have been done sooner. But these are the vendors ultimately after bidding, which is a state requirement, telling us, thanks, but no thanks, we're not interested. Oh, we'll pay you 100% more. Yeah, no thanks. 200% more. Yeah, no problem. We're not interested. And that's a dilemma we're working with. And completely get the extended routes, which is not a solution. Completely get, think out of the box, try to figure it out. Believe me, in our operations committee, we talk about this all the time. The other thing to just keep in mind is that some of the larger districts in New Jersey have scale, right? Watchung is a small town. We have the high school, which helps because we have more scale. Larger school districts that have 20, 30, 40 elementary schools have more scales and are more appealing to some of these vendors, right? That's part of the reality of economics. So this is what we're dealing with. It's really not a budget issue at this point, although Mr. Pepe would disagree because we're blowing through our budget for half the buses. It's really a shortage problem that we're trying to deal with. So I just wanted to be clear on that. I know it's frustrating, believe me, I empathize, I'm in the same boat, and we're trying everything we can. And I respect the communication aspect, and on the operations committee, certainly that's one thing that we'll do. Maybe we can have consistent communication as to where we are and what the next plans are. But just the commentary about, why is this happening? That's why it's happening. It's not just our district, it's other districts. We're competing against them as well.
I'm sorry. If you want to speak, just come up to the podium, just state your name and address if you want to make a comment.
The only comment I would say about other districts, number one, other districts will have different contracts and may have contracted for these buses years ago and have longer term contracts. And those vendors are now in those contracts. Other districts have more scale. So it's not Bayberry and Valley View, two schools. The vendor may say, I don't want that. Give me Edison that has 20 schools and make more money that way, right? I'm just making this up. I'm using that district hypothetically. But now I can allocate my resources to larger schools, which may possibly compensate me more, right? I'm not interested in Watchung that has two schools. So it becomes a competition amongst other school districts as well as to who can get the limited vendors to have interest. And what's a little, I know, crazy is that I know a lot of parents were frustrated with the new vendor we had last year. And I know it was a bumpy start. Keep in mind that that vendor said no thanks when we asked for renewal. They're like, okay, see you. Go get another vendor. And that's where we are now. And we're trying everything we can to find other vendors. It's just, there are only so many, and it's also comes down to ultimately how much more you want to pay and do they have the drivers.
Thank you.
So I would just add that you made the very good argument for why with larger districts have scale, we should not be very dismissive of a study that will be conducted for regionalization or shared services, which we dismissed without discussion a year ago.
Okay, we're going to move on to action items. Anthony, can you please move the administrative items?
Sure, I move administrative item A1, approve minutes of previous meeting. That's a regular meeting and the executive session on August 25th. A2, approve minutes of July 21st executive session. A3, approve minutes of the 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021, and 2021, 2022 executive sessions. A4, ratify the MOA between WBEA and WBBOE. A5, designate superintendent designee. A6, accept school security drill report. A7, approve Watchung Borough School District Annual Nursing Plan. A8, approve Chapter 27 Emergency Virtual or Remote Instruction Programs. A9, approve Valley View Student Council and PTO dance. A10, approve Valley View Back to School Bingo Night.
Is there a second?
Second, Kevin.
Any discussion?
Yes. Many might have noticed reading through these, and I just want to explain why I will be splitting my vote when it comes to A1, A2, and A3. It's a very unusual lineup that you see there, especially with A3 being approval of minutes for the 2019, going back to 2019, and also 2020 and 2021 into 2022 executive sessions. You know, so many meetings where there's been a long wait for us to emerge. And so we are now voting to approve 3 years worth of those sessions. So I just want to explain why I won't be. I don't know how anyone else is going to vote, so this is not accusatory in any way, but I don't think anyone should be voting to approve minutes of meetings they didn't attend, especially those who weren't there because they weren't even board members yet. And anyone who was on the board and would vote yes for meetings that were as long as 3 years ago and not sure when they were written, to meet a compliance standard for an upcoming CUSAC audit should really make an examination of their conscience there and taking such an action. So like I said, I don't know how others are going to vote, but there's very few here that were around when some of these closed door meetings occurred. And so if this board for 3 years failed to record and approve meeting minutes, I think it's very questionable to approve them in bulk now and just to score a certain number of extra CUSAC governance points that the district doesn't deserve. So the CUSAC stands for the New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum. The key word is accountability. This board didn't meet the standard on this. So I don't support this level of a retroactive fix of the books to make it look like the standard was met when it clearly was not for 3 years. Thank you.
I'm just going to say something. In what world do we kneecap our school district in terms of the CUSAC just because we have a beef with the board? I mean,
I was talking about the failure of the board, Kevin. I'm not sure where you took that as to kneecap the school district. That's
well,
an
if we're going to
unfortunate
deny
term.
ourselves CUSAC points, I mean, it doesn't seem like that.
What's
is
the
really
penalty for denying? Do you know how many CUSAC points we've lost in previous years?
I actually have a question. George, do you and the business administrator confirm the minutes are accurate in the executive session for A3?
Yes, I do. Rich prepared them. I reviewed them to the best of my knowledge and belief. They're accurate.
Is there any advice from our board council?
You saw me moving towards the microphone. I don't think it's, oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. So I don't know how many points you get on CUSAC for your minutes. My recommendation to the board is that you approve these executive session minutes going back to 1920 if they've not been approved by the board, regardless of CUSAC. Having a consistent practice of approving your minutes is good board governance. It also provides for your board secretary when he or she receives OPA requests to know that he or she can respond to those OPA requests because they have been board approved. So there are a number of reasons for regularly approving your executive session and your public minutes, regardless of CUSAC. And I recommend that you do this.
Which I agree with that. And that's why I asked as soon as the first opportunity after my joining the board to ask about the minutes and the process for approving them. And I was not, my fellow board members didn't feel like it was something they wanted to follow up on. So it was dismissed earlier this year. So.
I don't think the public wants to hear about board minutes. Can we move on?
Sure.
Actually,
If
I
there's
have a
no other
question.
discussion.
I have a question. Carrie, some of them might have some just legal cases that were discussed at that time. So I personally do not feel comfortable. I think during our executive session last time, we kind of discussed this, be approved. So it was, can we split it up and then have the board members that were present during those meetings approve the minutes and then kind of split it up in that form. And I don't think that was done. That is what was discussed last time.
So as a Board of Education member, you have the absolute right to say, even if you take your agenda in a chunk or as a consent agenda, you have the absolute right to vote yes for A1, but no for A2. You can vote no for certain pieces of it. So if you don't feel comfortable, you do not have to vote for it.
Okay.
If your business administrator and your superintendent and other board members who were there indicate that those are accurate, there is nothing legally or ethically that would prohibit a board member from voting to approve the minutes of a meeting, even if they weren't in attendance at that meeting. So the board members can vote if you're comfortable voting on them. So also, I just want to make sure it's clear to you, just because you're approving the minutes does not necessarily mean that they will be released to the public, because there are certain pieces of your minutes that may never be released to the public. If the reason for the confidentiality of the executive session still remains, such as a discussion with your attorney. So attorney-client privilege remains really forever. So if it's a student issue, right? So that information is never going to be produced to the public. But it is good board governance to regularly approve your executive session and your public minutes.
And then is there any liability, let's say, if it is an ongoing case, or if there's any student involvement, any of that the board members that approve it would be liable? If they approve that?
Oh, no. You're approving, you are approving the minutes as reflective of action or discussion that was taken in executive session. Nothing more than that.
Okay, thank you.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbella?
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli? That was a yes. Mr. Ingracia?
Yes on A1, no on A2, no on A3, yes A4 through A10.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Murad?
Yes, on everything except A3, please.
Ms. Excuse me, Ms. Sedvani?
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf?
Abstain on A4, yes on the rest.
Mrs. Harvey?
Abstain on A4 due to being in the same union, and the yes on the rest.
All right, I have to tally these. Give me 1 second. Okay, all of the motions received enough votes to pass, so all motions pass.
Thank you. Kevin, can you please move personnel items?
Yes, I move personnel items. B1, ratify appointment of district English as a second language teacher. B2, ratify appointment of executive secretary to the business administrator, board secretary, payroll, benefits, transportation. A3, accept resignation retroactively. B3. B4, adjust certificated tenured staff salaries. B5, adjust certificated non-tenured staff salaries. B6, adjust administration and non-affiliated staff salaries. B7, adjust treasurer salary. B8, establish the following district manager of information technology position. B9, approved manager of information technology job description. B10, approve change of assignment. B11, adjust 2022 summer Title I summer program staff salaries. B12, adjust special education related arts staff for the 2022 extended school year program staff salaries. B13, adjust related services for the 2022 extended school year program staff salaries. B14, adjust summer curriculum writer salaries. B15, adjust certificated staff participation in IEP and 504 meeting staff salaries. B16, change of assignment Valley View School. B17, approve Valley View additional classes. B18, appoint Valley View co-curricular revised. B19, approve maternity leave absence. B20, approve Valley View math tutor volunteer. And B21, appoint district substitutes revised. And B22, approve team leader job description.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Ms. Advani,
Yes.
Mrs. Scharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
That one's much easier. The motion's passed.
Rich, can you please move operation items?
I move item C1, approve payment of bills. Item C2, approve transfer of funds. Item C3, accept financial reports. Item C4, authorize actions in connection with proposed school facilities projects. That's the referendum. C5, approve agreement with Phoenix Advisors Bond Services for referendum services. C6, approve joint transportation agreement with Morris County, Morris Union Jointure Commission. C7, approve transportation services agreement with Somerset County. C8, approve disposal of surplus, broken, or outdated property. C9, accept donations from Watchung Educational Foundation with thanks. C10, approve grants from Watchung Educational Foundation. C11, approve transportation, professional travel and related expenses.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a clarification that I just need. For C4, the vote is to just start the process, that it would be on the ballot in December. However, we're going to have another vote for it to be approved, right, by us, once the state aid is received back? Correct?
Dory, would you like me to respond to that?
Sure, but as I
Okay.
understand
I
it,
just want-
yeah, the resolution is basically preserving the opportunity to have a special election so we can take the steps. But correct, we need to get the PEC letters from the state before the bond questions can be finalized and approved.
Okay, thank you. And then I also just wanted to thank WEF. I absolutely adore the card tags. They're adorable. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
For C1, yes. Yes for C2. Yes for C3. No for C4. No for C5. Yes for C6. Yes for C7, yes for C8, yes for C9, yes for C10, and yes for C11.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Mrs. Advani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Abstain on C7, yes for the rest.
Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
Yes, motion's passed.
Jen, can you please move curriculum items?
Yes, I move D1, adopt revised comprehensive health and physical education curriculum. D2, approve 2022, 2023 field trips revised.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes. I just wanted to point out my reason for abstaining from D1. And the reason is, so this is on the record. In April, I asked that, and I made it very clear that we were passing the standards because there would be parental input and that parents do have the right to opt out should they choose. And throughout the summer, I brought it up in many meetings that parents would be able to have that option to see their curriculum within a given time. And even in July, I brought up that a survey, if it's possible, because other school districts were doing it and no survey was contemplated as the answer that I received. I don't think that there was enough input, and I've asked the curriculum committee in I think it was like August 22nd if supplemental material was on it or not, and it was not. There were only 3 resources that were provided to parents on their curriculum if they even had an opportunity to see it. With that said, I've attended many school board meetings, association meetings throughout the counties. This was in spring. And a lot of the questions that and concerns that these school boards had and they were addressing at that time were that a lot of the supplemental material that could possibly be given out to school districts possibly may not align with the standards. So there is a lot of misinformation out there, and I don't think that that opportunity was provided to parents. And because there was not enough transparency, I think if we could hold off on the vote, that would be great. But at this time, I would be abstaining.
I just wanted to comment on the supplemental materials. I guess that's your questioning. And not all of the supplemental materials are always listed in the curriculum because the curriculum is set to a 5-year cycle. And most districts cannot afford their curriculum to be rewritten yearly, hence the 5-year cycle. The curriculum is a guide for the teachers to utilize. And since it's usually updated, not updated for another 5 years, teachers do have the flexibility to use new and updated supplemental materials in their classrooms. And I believe our district would like to be as up to date as possible with new information. And that being said, that parents can always contact their classroom teachers each year to discuss whatever supplemental materials will be used in the classroom. And that's probably the best way for parents to find out exactly what's happening in the classroom is to contact their teachers.
Sure, but just clarification that the Department of Education for New Jersey that clarified regarding these standards, right? It says that, to your point, that the state, generally speaking, does not mandate curriculum. Materials adaptation is left to us. And that is why I personally believe that I was shocked to see some of the revisions and when they were done, because I had no idea what half of those materials were. So if I, as a board member, am looking at it, I don't feel comfortable. I would abstain until that information is provided to me. That's all.
So I'd like to comment on the curriculum. And I fully respect both sides of the debate, and I just want to give a few comments as to explain why I'll vote a certain way. So the reason why we're going through this process is because the state of New Jersey changed its standards. And what that means is that each of the school districts, to follow the law, has to adopt the standards. Now, why you see so much debate amongst districts, as Amber indicated, is because these are minimum standards which the state provides, but ultimately it's up to the district how they implement them. Not every district is doing it the same way. We hire the superintendent from a board perspective as an educator and a trusted person to make those distinctions on how to comply and in which manner. He in turn hires capable principals for that purpose, who then in turn work with educators to meet those aspects. So, one thing I want to dispel, because I know it's confusing, you turn on the news and you see curriculum debates at board meetings across the country. Those are in different states and they're impassioned people on both sides and they both have a point. My personal view is that parents have a complete decision-making on what their children learn, full stop. That being said, that's fine. The input that we have received as a board, there is no majority. We have received as many commentary of people that say, I'm fully supportive, you're insane not to support, and other people saying, no, I'm totally against it, do not support. So there's two things to resolve. There'll never be a majority. I just want to make that clear. You can have the public can have an entire discussion for weeks. There are always going to be people that have differing views, and that's fine. That's society. What I would say is, and what gives me comfort is, one, I trust the administration. I trust the teachers and the principals. Transparency, the curriculum is made fully visible online to parents, guardians to see it. On top of that, if you have questions, after you do your due diligence on the curriculum, if you need more information, you talk to your teachers. Beyond that, if that's not sufficient, then you can talk to your principals. Further, and this is for me the key, is the opt-out clause, right? If you did not have a choice, that's a problem. But there is a choice. If after all that, you still feel uncomfortable and you want control of what your children are being taught, no matter where you stand on it, I don't care if you're liberal, moderate, conservative, independent, it doesn't matter what your views are. And I have, again, students in the district. Then you have the opt-out, which is, do not teach my children this. And then you have control again, if that's what you wish. But if you don't, you can stick with the curriculum. Now, I know some parents have asked, why not opt in? It's not allowed by law. You have opt out. And frankly, it's a distinction without a difference. You still have control. And that'll be made fully aware to all parents in communications about the opt out. If after you do your due diligence, you still feel uncomfortable. So based upon all that, I'm personally comfortable because everyone has choice. But I do not believe after everything I've seen that you're ever going to have agreement on this topic. Just turn on the news and you don't have agreement. Believe me, in the town, you're not going to get agreement on this. Everyone has an individual voice. We love the input. Bring it to us, bring it to the administration. But ultimately, they are the ones that have the responsibility of educating the children and putting the curriculum together and complying with state law. And they have discretion. It's not going to necessarily be what the next district is doing, and you can still comply. So I just wanted to make that clear, and ultimately I'll be in favor for it, but it's because of those reasons.
Hi, I wanted to address actually a few things. About E3, the question was, if I wasn't there, did it make sense for me to approve the minutes? And my comment on that is, if I trust the administration to teach my kids everything, I can certainly trust them to take the minutes. So that was my, for the reason why I voted affirmatively on that. And, I've thought a lot about this the curriculum. I found myself really, like someone mentioned, right in the middle of it all. But I think the key point that I kept coming back to, and I think, Joe, you said it, was that by giving people the option to opt out, everyone wins, because you can say yes and you can say no. If I say, if we don't have this, no one has a choice. Everyone has to go with one way. And to the point that you made about let everyone have an opinion, that this is a way of getting everyone to have an opinion and living life by that opinion. So for that reason, I vote for it as well.
I agree with everyone, what everyone has said here, because I think the best thing is to have that community input. To be having the ability to choose, I think that is our democracy, and that is obviously, why all of us are Americans, and that's why all of us are sitting here. What I absolutely admire is how everyone's saying they love and trust the administration and everything else. But where were you guys last year when we held a public session to see something that a trusted individual and a member, a staff member, came up and said, you know what, I think this will help academic excellence? That never happened. Principals were forced to have a session at that time, whether they were on a vacation or not, didn't matter. But they were responsible to come in here and talk to parents whether we would switch schedules. That issue, everyone knew was going to be controversial. But there was time taken out during the summer, right, to put that forth. Why couldn't that happen with this when everyone here understands clearly? Oh, it's the math that I'm talking about. The one that was on both of your flyers and literature that said 5 days of math just because of that. Well, you know what? Parents didn't have an option at that time. We had somebody who said this would help them academically. That never happened. So when it comes to this, I think the same courtesy should have been given to parents to have that ability to choose, which they do, but now that it's too far in, we're 3 weeks into school. And when they're making these decisions, you think parents have time? They're on the bus, they're waiting for that. They're waiting for so many other things. So please, don't give me that nobody had time
Mrs.
to discuss
Marad,
that.
I think
Thank
your
you.
condescending tone should stop.
I'm done with the
Okay.
hazing ritual. You know
And
what? I'm calling
and
for
I'd
what it is.
I'd also have to say that our administration did do an information session on this as well.
2 weeks in, right? It could have happened before, but it wasn't.
Thank you, Mrs. Marad.
One point that somebody made was, we live in a community and let's live as united as we can. While I don't know what happened in the past, all I can say is we're in the present and let's move forward the best way we can.
Well, you've heard.
I'd like to,
Sorry.
I'd just like to explain why, the way I'm going to vote and my thought process. I took an oath of office when I joined the board, and the oath said that I would uphold the laws of the state of New Jersey. Now, before I would vote no on the grounds that I disagreed with the law, my personal code of ethics would have me resign. So that was off the table. I'm not going to violate my oath of office. Secondly, you get to, there is a space between the law and the classroom and the curriculum. And that's where I have faith and trust in our administration. I have faith and trust in our principals. I have faith and trust in our teachers to teach curriculum in accordance with state law in an age-appropriate, trusting and loving manner. So that's how I came to my decision. And the opt-out completely sealed it for me.
I've read the curriculum as thoroughly as possible in the time we've had. And I know it's impossible that anyone that says they've read the curriculum that's not on the board, that's not true. The standards are available. They've been out for 2 years, but the curriculum is not going to be released until the board votes to approve it. And then it's going to be posted to the website. So anything that's been reviewed so far is the standards, because only the board members have had the chance for not all that long a time to actually see the curriculum. But fair enough, because a lot of the curriculum is pulling in those standards. So I'm not trying to quibble over that detail, but there is very little specificity in the curriculum that I've had a chance to read about how these standards are going to be delivered. And given the feedback the district received at the September 12th information session, which I was the only board member to attend in person, and I think there was some benefit to that things that you might not have been able to hear remotely. But the public comments and through many emails that we received, there was only public comments of concern at the September 12th event, and the only emails that I've seen the board receive have asked to not go ahead at this time. But it's clear the community is overwhelmingly concerned, at least by the standards, to a degree that I'm not sure I've seen in my over 40 years in the town, in my memory. And I think the community is owed far more information than what was expressed in this curriculum. Once you even do get a chance to see the curriculum, I think that the community was owed more. So I'll just provide a couple examples, and this is about how we're going about as a board working to do a good job here. But the standard is listed for second grade, 6, 7, or 8-year-olds, list medically accurate names for body parts, including the genitals. And so what are the terms that they'll be learning? There were some guesses, but the curriculum doesn't list them. Other districts have written curriculum that explain in detail how this standard will be addressed. For example, their curriculum dictates the term private parts and references conversations about how that is personal, etc. Our district curriculum makes no mention of any of that and what materials will be used, and if there's going to be explicit visuals, things like that for 6, 7, and 8-year-olds. The 7th graders, as a standard is listed, that they will learn to define 3 different sex acts, which I won't say here because people may be listening to this at other times of the day and with young children around. But why doesn't the curriculum give the definitions that these 12-year-olds are going to learn? Are there visual aids for this lesson? Or perhaps the district could explore ways to send this material home, as other districts have done, so that parents may cover the material with their child in accordance with their values. And why, if the standards require instructional content about sex acts to be introduced by the end of 8th grade, has it been placed in our 7th grade curriculum? As a parent of a 12-year-old 7th grader myself, I would feel far more comfortable with this content if it would be introduced at all, being sensibly and sparingly introduced a year later, rather than a year earlier with zero explanation. The curricula, especially with a topic this controversial, is more than just a list of the state standards, though. A recent document from New Jersey School Boards Association puts it this way with regard to the new health and sex ed standards. It's important to note that these standards do not mandate specific curriculum. They provide guidance for individual districts to develop curricula that is age appropriate and that reflects the values of the community. So it's our job to approve a curriculum that reflects the values of our community. We should be sure that the materials was developed in a way our community can support after hearing their concerns and tailoring the material accordingly. This is the difference between curricula and standards. The Department of Education Commissioner issued a statement on May 4th, 2022, clarifying this difference. She stressed not just the prerogative, but the obligation local boards of education have to design and implement curriculum that, similar to what the New Jersey School Board said, aligns with the aspirations and values of the local community. Here is her quote. This, meaning the difference between standards and curriculum, leaves considerable room for local district discretion and critically for the voices of parents and families. It is the responsibility of each local district board of education through meaningful, ongoing, and direct consultation with families to select, adopt, and implement curricula that reflect both the New Jersey student learning standards and the priorities and values of the school community. So you can't separate those responsibilities. Yet the Watchung Board of Education has not done the latter part at all. The September 12th presentation was not a meaningful consultation with families, in my opinion. It was the same 2-year-old 2020 standards being presented. So I don't understand how we can approve a curriculum that falls so far short of the mandate expressed not only by Commissioner McMillan, but in the oath each of us took to be on the board, to confine my board action to policymaking, planning, and appraisal, and I will help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them. Not to mention the state regulations requiring boards of education to encourage feedback from the community, which I read at our last meeting. And despite being attacked by our board president and others, that I'll read it again. District boards of education shall, which means must in policy language for our legal experts, district boards of education shall encourage the active involvement of representatives from the community in the development of educational programs aligned with New Jersey student learning standards. That's NJAC 6A:8-3.1. Those are not my words. Those are statutes, mandates, and guidelines from state agencies. So I'll just quote the New Jersey Department of Education Commissioner again, comments that she made on this very topic. The State Board of Ed's new sex ed health standards. It's the local educational agencies, that's us, the Board of Education, who decide when instructional content gets introduced to students within the specified grade bands. The LEA, that's us, determine in what sequence to bundle the performance expectations, how long to spend on each performance expectation, and select the lesson plans, formative assessments, and other instructional materials that are used to deliver that content. These are among the most foundational academic decisions that an LEA makes. And as I have said repeatedly, this is still Commissioner McMillan, it is critical to include parents along every step of that decision-making process. This simply has not been done. The commissioner closed one of her recent communications this way, and I think it's a fitting way to close mine. To those parents and stakeholders who say they deserve a voice in their child's education, I wholeheartedly agree. That value is enshrined in our laws, reflected in our regulatory process, and should be reflected in every LEA's academic decision-making. Since this value was not part of our decision-making process, I cannot support the curriculum in this current form. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that the information session was live streamed, so board members watched and reviewed it who didn't show up in person. And
There was a
based
lot
on
of
our
discussion on the side of the
conversations, excuse me,
microphones.
I'm speaking.
Excuse me,
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to correct
Based
that.
on our conversations in the curriculum committee, the content of the lessons in the curriculum are the same as last year with some new vocabulary. So essentially the content hasn't changed.
Well, I
Is there any
disagree.
other discussion?
Yeah, I think that we should, we had the curriculum that came out just a day or so after that September 12th meeting. And I think that that would have been nice for the parents to have a chance to review. I don't think it's too late if we could, follow what's been recommended with having the parents involved in every step along the way, and just having the no input but opt out is far short of what we're being called to do as a board member, our oath, but also by the state and the Commissioner of Education herself in her statement of May. So, thank you.
Roll call, please.
I actually have one comment. It's mentioned during the public session information session that was held. It's mentioned today that there are many parents in the district that possibly do not speak the language. my parents were immigrants. I was the first person to go through school, learn American culture, all of that. In 5th grade, yes, it's a little secret. My mom, I'm sorry, she's up there watching, but she's gonna find out that I signed that permission slip myself. So, and it had nothing to do with what the beliefs or values were. It was just so I didn't feel left out. So as a child, I know that you do want to feel included as an individual, but also understand the culture and understand where we're headed, where we are today. And I also respect a lot of the research that's out there. But as a parent who has gone through the system, who understands, who has children in the school system, and who has listened to many concerns, both sides, my only suggestion right now is that transparency, again, is provided so parents, whether they choose to keep their children in or opt them out, they have the ability to do so with full knowledge of it. Because as I mentioned earlier, there's so much misinformation out there. Just to clarify it, just to say, look, this is all we're teaching on either side. So parents can make that informed decision. And that's important for all of us here, because that's what we're elected to do. Also uphold the law, but also let everyone in the district know, because I know when all of us or any of us go door knocking and talk to people, that's the first thing we say, that we want to provide transparency, that we want to make sure that we're accountable to everyone. And how does that happen? That doesn't matter if it's on your for or against it, that transparency is provided. But me as a board member, again, I don't feel that a lot of information was shared with me, and that's why I'm abstaining from it.
May I ask this question to Mr. Alexis? Mr. Alexis, can you explain how this will be further communicated to the parents about the curriculum made available on the website and other information for decision-making?
Sure. I'll be sending out a message to our school community, letting them know that what the board's decision was. If it's approved, I will be letting them know, and we'll have links to the website. When the website will, the principals are going to place the curriculum on the website. The opt-out form is already there. The principals are going to follow up with another message, and we are going to encourage parents who are concerned after reviewing the curriculum to reach out to the classroom teacher. If we have individuals that need, some form of translation, we will absolutely provide that to the best of our ability.
Thank you.
But meanwhile, what the board is saying is it's decided. So any of this requirement to have input, you can complain or you can opt out, but you have no say. And
That's completely inaccurate. That we've had a tremendous amount of input from the community. Now, the input's not one-sided. It's on both sides. So to say that there's been no input is a ridiculous statement. Look how many people look how many people are here today saying what they believe. So I think that's disingenuous to say there's been no input. That's what you said. There's no input.
There's been no chance. There's been no opportunity.
Respectfully, I disagree with that statement. I think that's asinine. There's been plenty of input. Parents still have an opportunity to provide more input, and they also have the decision-making ability with the opt-out. Now, I'm not saying that all parents have seen the curriculum or the standards, the curriculum that's going to come out. Maybe they don't attend or live stream the board sessions, but that's what the further communication is. So, I think it's disingenuous to say that there's been no input.
Well, I think if you're going to use the word asinine, you should back it up, Joe, because what opportunity have parents had to have collaboration with this curriculum? They had a September 12th
we've been talking about this
presentation of the
curriculum for some
2020
time, Mr.
standards.
Ingrassia. We've had multiple conversations. We had the learning session. So I think there's
Okay,
been
so you have no
opportunities.
example except the meeting
All right,
tonight.
so I'm going to move this on
Tonight's
to
meeting was it, right?
I'm going to move this on to a roll call because we're kind of repeating ourselves here. So roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Beccarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
No on D1, yes on D2, approve the field trips.
excuse me, Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Abstain on D1 and yes for D2.
Ms. Sedbani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
motion's passed.
Joe, can you please move policy items?
Sure. Move policy E1, approve policy and regulation first reading. E2, approve policies for second reading and adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbella,
Yes.
Mr. Buccarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mrs. Murad,
Yes.
Ms. Sedbani,
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
motion's passed.
Okay, we're going to move on to board business. I didn't receive any requests from any board members ahead of time, so we do have one topic on here, the remote public comments discussion.
Anyone has any questions? Because I know this was talked about for a while now.
You want me to tee it up?
Yes,
so-
please.
So people have a recollection. So this was referred to the policy committee some months ago. And it's the question of right now, at post-COVID, the state went back to in-person sessions like tonight for the board meeting. And all boards now in the state of New Jersey have in-person sessions. Additionally, depending on the district, they may have some differences in some other aspects of their meetings. For example, live streaming. Also, some districts have what I would call hybrid models where they mandatorily have the in-person, and as board members, we can no longer be remote. We have to be in person. So even if we were not able to make it, we can't Zoom in. We have to be in person. And the community, of course, is here. Some districts, though, still afford and provide during the comment section of the meeting, just the comment section, when people get up at the podium, the ability to Zoom in like we did during COVID for commentary. So this was referred to the policy committee to make a decision on the options and what to do. So one of the first things we've asked the administration to do is to please do a survey of surrounding communities to see, not that it's dispositive, but simply to see what other communities are doing for some guidance on potentially what we can do. So the district looked at 16 neighboring school districts, including Watchung Hills, plus looked at our in essence, what we do in the town. So first of all, in-person is available everywhere, as I just mentioned. With regard to live streaming, it's actually somewhat mixed based upon the survey of these districts, all surrounding Watchung, but it skews towards a bit more live streaming available than not. So we do offer that live streaming for individuals at home that could replay it anytime they want. The last piece is the public comments piece, and how do the other districts handle it? The majority only allow in-person commentary and do not allow the Zoom portion of individuals to, I guess, Zoom in and during the comment section, provide comments. That's not exclusive. There were 4 districts that do allow it through a Zoom link. So the question before us this evening and for discussion is selecting an option on how we want to handle it, and that's what the discussion is for tonight. Option 1 is simply, it's post-COVID. We have in-person meetings. Everyone is in person. It's in essence 1 meeting a month. Everyone shows up for the meeting, and there's no Zoom access from, for individuals that want to, have commentary. Option two is basically doing what we were doing during COVID, which is, but with the in-person option, obviously, allowing people to come in person if they wish, but for the commentary section, allowing them through technology to Zoom in during the comment period. For full transparency, we did look at one other option, which was a bit of a misnomer, which was some kind of hybrid option where one of the districts on its face looked like they were controlling a bit more the commentary that came in from Zoom. So one of the concerns, and this is why it was brought to the policy committee that some board members had, was when we do Zoom, we can't require people to turn on their cameras. And we can't per se validate that you say who you are. We can't confirm that. So one concern that some board members had is, how do we control that? Because anyone could be on the other side of the microphone. We believe that one district potentially had a solution, but the reality is it was sort of like option two, where there was no real control. You could attempt to police it with some delay or some verification, but to be frank, it's incredibly administratively burdensome to our BA to be able to take minutes, police the technology, go to the microphone, those kinds of things. So the reality is it's not a real control or option. So what's before us is stay in person or allow full Zoom, but no validation per se as to the people that call in. So discussion.
I would like to put a survey out to the public and see what they would prefer. So many of these issues, we constantly talk about technology and taking advantage of that in our construction and in our district, and yet time after time, from one issue to the next, we have been reluctant and not move forward with some surveys that I think, whether it's the referendum, whether it's this curriculum, I think we could have really benefited from. So I would say a simple survey just to see what people think they would, how they would like to interact with the board remotely, since we're all here anyway, would be the proper way to move forward.
I'll give my thoughts on it. I don't necessarily disagree with Anthony about the survey, but I don't think it's going to necessarily change my mind. Maybe it will if it's overwhelming, but I've thought about this a bunch of different ways. There are benefits to having remote comment. Obviously, more people can participate. The downside is we don't know if those are who they say they were, who they say they are, or if they're actual members of our community. But I think the upside of having people here outweighs the upside of having the remote comment. We've allowed comment by email. That's been okay, but I don't think there's any substitute for people coming here. And we had two groups that, vehemently disagreed with one another, but they were in this room at the same time. And I think that the dialogue was a lot better than what we had during COVID when everybody was remote and they were just talking to a computer screen. So for me, we could do a survey, but I think that where I'm at right now is that I'd really rather see everybody back here. Even if it's somebody that's going to disagree with me, I'd rather see you in person, look at you, have you look at me, and then, we can disagree. So that's kind of where I am on the issue.
So I have had a lot of parent feedback on this issue, and it's consistent since the time that I asked everyone to vote on it earlier this year. And it's the same thing that parents, they don't have time to show up here. It's easy for them to listen on while they're cooking and cleaning and getting their kids homework or ready for bed, because some of our meetings do last really long. Or maybe the other spouse or other parent is not at home at that time. So the parent that is can't come necessarily. Or somebody needs to get babysitting, but necessarily they don't want to wait until midnight here having to comment. So for me, I've heard it overwhelmingly numerous times that parents would like that option because they feel like they were able to stay up to date on everything that was going on. Live streaming is great, but live streaming, just like Joe said, it does have a lag currently. So I don't see how we won't be able to end it, or if something were to arise. But then again, that doesn't stop anyone from coming here and saying anything rude or obnoxious. You know, you're going to have that. That's happened in many other school districts where people have had to be escorted out, right? So I think it's just an option for parents to have, and it's just a nice thing to do right now, especially if we don't have the busing service, or for some parents where it takes 2 hours for their kids to actually get home and then get the process started of cooking, getting them ready for bed, because I'm pretty sure that's my pet peeve. So
One thing I neglected to mention also is that currently with which the other districts that don't offer the Zoom don't currently have, is that we do allow individuals in the community prior to the meeting to send in commentary emails to Mr. Pepe, who reads them aloud. So that is one distinction that we currently do that the districts that don't allow Zoom don't allow right now.
Just a couple of comments. We've been on a couple of remote meetings and people don't have their cameras on. There's initials on there. I don't know who they are. It makes me very uncomfortable that people are, you know, anonymous and making comments to our board. I don't think it's, look, we all put in a lot of time, committees, more committees, meetings. I think if people want to be involved, it's not that hard in a town like Watchung to come down and talk to us. It's a very small town. I also think that you can have your comments the next meeting. We, as well as live streaming it, we record it and it's available for people at any time. As far as surveys are concerned, I find them pretty useless in a town like Watchung, where, let me just take the other side of it. In my company, when we have a survey, you're expected to answer. And if you get a response rate that's below 90%, it's shocking. And when you get a response rate that's 90%, it's pretty representative of what the people think. If we're going to send out a survey, I mean, the response rate, even amongst the teachers in the healthcare survey, was like 17%. So, like, if we're going to get send out a survey and get a response rate of 20% or less, I don't see that it's really meaningful as to what the community wants. So I'm not a big fan of surveys in this situation, but I am a fan of people coming, showing who they are. We've had identity theft in this town of a board member on Facebook. We've had anonymous flyers sent out during election time with no attribution, with misinformation. I don't like any of that. I think people should come here as a community. I thought this was wonderful tonight. I enjoyed hearing both sides. The last meeting we had, I thought was wonderful. We had a full participation. I think so. That's what a community is about. It's not about sitting in your room without a camera on behind some icon or, you know, a couple of initials and spouting off. And so, you know, I think the way it is now is fine. We have full transparency. You can come in person, you can watch a live stream, you can watch it later on, and you can come anytime you want and give your comments. That's my opinion.
So no, go ahead. So I'm a product manager, and that's why I apologize I was late, because we were in a meeting. And one of the biggest things we do is we say, well, instead of talking about the mechanisms, talk about the problem you're solving. So the problem we are solving right now is, do parents have accurate methods to address their concerns? And can they listen in to everything that's being discussed at the board. That's the problem we are solving. The technology is just a mechanism how we deliver it, right? So if I think about it very logically, I say, are there methods for parents to listen? Are there methods for parents to voice their concerns? Are there methods for them to send in comments? And if they are, then there are ways for their voices to be heard. Because that's the problem we are solving. Are there enough ways for the voices to be heard? So I said, given that, I'm okay with having more accountability. And I love seeing people. That just makes it just a lot more human. So for that, that's how I feel about it.
I'd like to concur with that opinion. So it's not lost on me that it's certainly very convenient if individuals are at home and want to provide comments live to do so. So it's not lost on me. I realize that people in the town are dedicating time to be at the meetings, and frankly, I think that's the most appropriate thing to do to be engaged personally in your children's activities. My only concern has been two things. One, the mechanism, the technology in which we've attempted to do this in the past has been an unmitigated disaster. Trying to hear people, echoes, the technology not working is just not hearing the board member, not hearing the person. You know, if we're going to create such an experience, it has to work, and we haven't perfected it. And it's in the past during COVID was just not well. The second thing is, and this was something alluded to by Mr. Buccarelli. Unfortunately, and I don't know who these individuals are, but we've had some situations again with people impersonating other people, including board members, believe it or not. And I know that sounds crazy, but that is the case. So there is some concern about controls and, you know, what the motives are of people who are behind, you know, blank cameras. So I do have some concern about that because I want to make sure that the people are who they say they are and that they're members of the community and are true stakeholders and don't have some agenda from somewhere else. So even though I'm torn on the topic, I do prefer the in-person meetings. It's one meeting a month. The calendar goes out 12 months. It's on the website. I realize not having the commentary remote is somewhat maybe inconvenient, but as mentioned, there's also other opportunities on how individuals can still comment and participate, even if you're not doing it via Zoom. So that's my view.
You know, I will say, as most of you know, maybe some of you not, I have 3 children. They're older now, so they can stay home alone, but, you know, well before, you know, this board, I would come to these meetings when I had 3 small children at home and my husband left at 5 o'clock in the morning and didn't get home till 8 o'clock at night. And I made it happen and I came, and sometimes I'd have to pop out to go pick someone up at soccer, baseball, whatever. But I made it happen because I was interested and I wanted to see what was going on. You know, the live streaming, I did watch the live stream information session about the sex ed because I personally, as a board member, didn't want to be here and make people feel uncomfortable. I wanted people to be able to speak freely. So I watched from home. And I will say with that, there was commentary off to the side, which was hard to hear. But here in our meetings, I think it's pretty tight. The camera's there, you have to come up there to speak. And when people had the microphone the other night, I could hear them. So call me old school, but I like the way we're doing it. And yes, not everyone agrees, and they didn't agree at the last meeting, but I like this. I like people being here. When we sit here with Dory's mom in the back, okay? Yeah, it's odd. I like people here, whether they're agreeing with us or disagreeing with us. And if you're watching on the live stream and you have a comment, you have everyone's emails to address your comments.
So I just like to make a motion to continue having our board meetings in person with live streaming and only in-person comments. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Give me 1 second, sorry. Mr. Barbella?
Yes.
Pencil broken. Mr. Buccarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ingracia?
No.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Murad?
No.
Ms. Advani?
Yes.
Mrs. Sharf?
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we're going to go to comments from the public on any item. Please remember to state your name and address before speaking.
Hans Jew at 20 Elsinore Drive here in Watchung. My biggest concern is how are we going to deal, and I haven't heard this addressed, but people who opt out, kids who opt out, what's happening to them while the kids are opting in learning this stuff? The kids opting out and the kids opting in, they're going to know who's who. And I think you're setting up the biggest bullying situation that you can possibly have. Because you know what's going to happen. The kids who are in a 7th and an 8th grader, okay, they can be pretty mean. You aren't big enough to learn this stuff? Why aren't you in with us? Do we know what's happening? How has that, because Mr. Ingracia brought up some good points. We haven't seen the curriculum. We haven't seen those details. To me, that's our biggest detail. Have we addressed it? I know it's not a question. I know it's not a question and answer.
Right.
Well, I'm going to write you a letter and I'm going to ask you to bring it up at the next meeting to specifically address how the opt-in, opt-out is going to happen. Because opt-out is a ruse. The kid's going to go home to his mother and father and say, hey, and they're going to learn it in 5th and 6th grade. I'm being crucified because I'm not in with the in-group. And you know what? I'm a first-generation American, okay? I come from the other side. I have relatives on the other side. I came over when I was about 10 years old. I came from the real old country, Germany. And when I played on the street with the kids, you know what they called me? And I had no idea what they were calling me. They were calling me a Nazi. And if you don't think that's going to happen with kids who are in and kids who are out, I think, you know, we're not leveling with each other. So I think this is probably the most critical issue you have. You've got to do something with the opt-outs when the opt-ins are learning this.
Thank you.
No answers.
It's not a question and answer session, but thank you for your
Well,
comment.
this is policy. This is what parents should have been told how this is going to work. And you have failed in making parents aware of how this opt-in, opt-out, how it's going to be taught. I mean, it's obvious there is zero transparency, which is not uncommon for this board.
Thank you.
Ms. Harvey, if I could just make a comment, I just want to share my experience. I feel that some people kind of feel that this opt-out is like this newfangled thing My son, who is a freshman in college, his 8th grade year, large class, about 110, 120 kids. Parents very upset about sex ed. Bunch of kids opted out. I didn't work then, so I was home in the know, the gossip, the moms. Never heard once about anyone being bullied who opted out. Just my historical knowledge.
Are there any other comments from the public?
Sorry. Scott Kaufman, 55 Glen Eagle Drive. I wanted to end on a positive note. I wanted to thank the Board of Ed and the administration for ratifying the contract with the Watchung Education Association. I think we have an amazing group of teachers and administrators in the district. I have 2 children in the district, and I'm very proud that they're in the school district. So thank you for that, and hopefully that is a positive ending to our night. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anna Figueredo. I live at 111 Johnston Drive. So I just have a comment and some concerns. This type of curriculum, I'm an educator. I've been an educator for 18 years. And I feel like that this type of curriculum requires specific lesson plans that provide a script for the teacher to follow. The reason why is because the delivery of instruction is going to vary from teacher to teacher. I walk into classrooms every day and teachers have the same curriculum, same standards, but the delivery of instruction is always different. And then my other concern is, how is this a win for my child? Okay, because it hasn't been clear. What's my child going to be doing specifically when he opts out? What is he going to be doing? It hasn't been, there's no plan. I haven't seen a plan. Is the teacher going to be creating 2 separate lesson plans to accommodate the group of students who opt out? And again, he's going to be losing instructional time. It's a waste of time. What is he going to be doing? Coloring? There's no plan. It's very vague, and there hasn't been enough transparency, and there's no plan. And as a parent, I get it. We have to abide by the standards, but there's no plan. I want to know what my child's going to be doing when we opt out. It's going to be a loss of instructional time. And there was a comment made by a parent earlier that said that this curriculum, it's going to enhance academic excellence. And I don't think it's going to enhance the academic excellence. What would enhance academic excellence is lowering the teacher to student ratio. That is a priority. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Stanton, 5 Glenview Drive. In reference to the policy matter on how these meetings are conducted, the board serves at the pleasure of the people of the town, not for their convenience. So for the board to make comments and decisions based upon, well, we'd rather have it this way, it's not how you would rather have it, it's how we want it, how we would rather have it. And for somebody to say, well, in my company, we send out surveys, well, that's good for your company. That's how you did it. That doesn't mean the way it's going to be here. So to deny people that are working, that are home taking care of kids, the opportunity to participate in these discussions and say, well, you use another method to do it, or send in a comment beforehand. There's things that take place during the meeting that require or would inspire additional comments or other comments to be made based upon the discussions that are there. And then votes get made, and well, you can comment the next time, well, it's too late, the horse is out of the barn. So to have a system where there's no other option but to show up here and sit here for 3 or 4 hours really is a disservice to all the parents that want to be here, but for whatever reason they can't be here, to not have them participate via a Zoom or Teams because you don't feel comfortable not knowing who's on the other side. That's not, it's what we want, not what you're comfortable with. That's what should have made the decision. Because again, it's what we want, not what's convenient or what you like. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Hi, Phyllis Jewett, 20 Elsinore Drive. I know it's getting late, but I want you to consider holding back on this curriculum until you get more input from the parents, parents in town, other people in town. You haven't done enough of that. It's like you're not doing your homework. That's your homework. Make sure that the people know what they're going to be getting. They don't know. And I'm asking you again, hold back on this until we have more input from the community and from the parents. Thanks.
Thank you.
I actually just had a comment. May I make a comment?
Are you correcting information or?
No, on base, I forgot to say something. I just want to quickly say it. When we brought up curriculum, I just wanted to thank the curriculum committee for taking a maze from some of the curriculum as a supplemental material. I'm again just surprised that you guys got to see it and we didn't, but just thank you.
Are there any other comments from the public?
Good evening, Dennis Pecos, 47 Brook Drive. Just a couple comments on a couple different subjects for tonight. First of all, not making a comment about whether we're complying or not, but we do have a policy about class size, which is policy number 2312. So whatever the facts are about what the class size is for various grades, I'm sure that the administration and the board will be studying that policy to make sure that we're in compliance with it. Transportation, I too am very much looking forward for the transportation situation to be resolved. My daughter is in 7th grade, and we're one of the families that is definitely impacted by that, and both of us are working. On the public comments section, which we just heard the board discuss, definitely very sympathetic for those who can't be here. Yes, it's great to be face-to-face, but there are definitely nights that I've wanted to be here that I couldn't. There are outlets for me to communicate with the board also, and which I've utilized in the past as well. I think perhaps the way this could be approached is maybe on an annual basis or on a somewhat regular basis, reassess the technology to see what would give comfort about either the anonymity. Somebody said it tonight, I forget who, but you can't ever control exactly what people are going to say when they get up here or when they're on Zoom. So we're never going to have 100% control over those types of topics. But if anonymity or certain conditions can prevail in order to make people more comfortable, I think that maybe some sort of annual assessment would be a helpful way forward as technology advances as well. And there have been multiple comments about surveys, and I think that on a range of different subjects, and I think that that's very helpful and has potential to be helpful. But and I get the sense that there will be more surveys in the future, if I'm taking the pulse correctly here. But it'll be really important, I think, to also publish the participation rates on these surveys. Pardon me. I think that that's important because I know historically when surveys have been sent out to the community, the participation rate has been very, very low. And actually, Mr. Buccarelli mentioned, I think 17%. I remember even lower participation rates on surveys in the past too. So that doesn't mean that those voices aren't important. But I do think that when surveys do start going out, that would be important information to have for everybody as they assess the different topics of interest. And that concludes my comments. Thank you. Thank you all for your service too.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment? I just wanted to echo what he said. I think an annual assessment of the technology to revisit it, I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. It doesn't look like there's any other comments. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for joining us this evening. This meeting is adjourned.